Okay, looks like I'm live. Hello, everybody. Just gonna take a few seconds here and let everybody kind of roll in while I kind of get everything a little bit more set up on my side. So just kind of stare awkwardly at me for a few moments. Well, I hope you're all doing well and having a great day wherever you are. It's about 1:30 a.m. here, so I've got my coffee with me. Yeah, you're gonna see that quite a bit during the stream. Just kind of ignore it. And this time, I think for episode 27, I'm going to kind of wing it a bit. This one's not going to be like a typical Q&A where I have, the three sets of questions. It's just going to be kind of freestyle. I'm going to go to the chat a lot and use those as far as the questions. And then other than that, I'm going to do kind of like a little fireside chat type thing just to kind of update everybody on what's going on with Super Dark Deception Chapter 5, Monsters and Mortals, and yeah, that's pretty much. And House, if anybody's waiting on news for that. So kind of all four. So we got a little bit of news for each one, and I'll kind of share all that first, and then I'll go to questions. So you guys can, or you all can all ask me everything that you have on your mind as far as whichever game that has your interest, because I know that differs for everybody. So we'll see which game has the most questions this time. It kind of fluctuates. Sometimes it's like all Monsters and Mortals, and it's all Dark Deception. And maybe there'll be some Super Dark Deception questions this time, but I think that'll be mostly like patch related. So it's all good. All right. One moment. Sorry, I'm kind of adjusting my setup in here. Okay, well, just to kind of kick things off, I'd normally just jump straight into the questions, but just going to kind of give a little update for each game, starting with Super Dark Deception, since of course that's the most relevant at the moment, given that it just released a few days ago. So, if any of you have bought Super Dark Deception or watched any of the videos, there are a number of bugs that have increased the difficulty of the game dramatically. Either they are unavoidable bugs, like things behavior with the enemies that you can't escape, or it's just an unfair behavior that causes the enemy to become much harder than we wanted it to be. So that's one of the things that we've been working on. We've looked at a lot of the feedback from negative reviews. There was some great stuff in there. There's also, as I've mentioned, there was like a little bit of a review bomb from players in Russia and China. I don't know why it was those countries specifically, but I'd say like 75% of the reviews were from those two countries. So we looked at feedback from all players, and the feedback that we kept seeing, or I kept seeing, was one, the UI had a lot of functionality problems. Two, enemy behavior has a lot of problems and is very aggressive and unfair in many situations. People had a differing opinion on which levels that apply to. I had half the people saying it was levels 3 and 4. A number of people said that the murder monkeys in level 1 were impossible. Well, that didn't seem to be a problem for other people. They got S ranks. But after playing through it, I felt like all the levels needed a rebalancing. They didn't quite come out as intended. So that's what we've been spending the past week on, is correcting all of that. I've also gone through and kind of rebalanced all of the S rank requirements to kind of reflect the crowd that will play on different difficulty modes, because now we're adding in those difficulty modes. We were originally going to kind of add them in with Chapter 2, but we felt like they're needed now. So we're adding those in, hard and normal. There's actually 4 difficulty modes. The last one is called Demon Mode, but it's kind of a new Game Plus feature, so you won't be able to access that mode until after Chapter 3, after you beat the game once. And that will be more than just a bump in enemy stats. That will actually have some rewards and incentives to play through it in Demon Mode. So So for people who really like to kind of punish themselves with hard challenges and insane difficulty modes, there is going to be a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. So it will be worth your while to play through it again on that mode. More than just getting like an achievement unlock on consoles or something. So we've been going through that. We've fixed a lot of the UI. We've fixed a lot of the enemy mechanics. We fixed a lot of the grade rank requirements. I think those were the big three that most people complained about. So that addresses a lot of the issues that fans have sent us. So thank you all for giving your feedback. That's kind of as a result of all these fixes, we've unintentionally, unfortunately, we've delayed the console release an extra 3 weeks to basically put all of these fixes into that build. Since once you launch the console version, it's very hard to patch the game. It's not like console or Steam and PC where we can easily drop a patch and have it out like same day. It has to go through a review process with Sony and Nintendo and Microsoft, and they can take weeks. So it's good that we get all these fixes in now, and then we don't have to patch the consoles on day one. So that, as a result, is delaying it from end of July to end of August. But as a result, the game's going to be much more stable and playable than it would have been if we released this build. So that is kind of I guess a silver lining to these early bugs, is that they allowed us to fix the mobile and the console versions. So only the Steam fans really had to kind of suffer a little bit. But we're going to have that patch done in probably a couple more days. So that will go out and hopefully make the game a lot more playable for a lot of people. And then we do have some extra content coming. So along with that patch, we're going to update with the bonus house characters. So we have a little character pack that has Tabby and Melody, and I'm going to share this online in a little bit. They will be added to the game under bonus characters with Mara. So if you go to the bonus tab of character selector, you'll see Mara's character in there. So those are characters that are bonus. They're included with the game. You don't pay anything extra for them. They're free. But they're kind of a partnership that we have with other companies or other indie developers. So House will be included, and you can play as Tabby or Melody from House 1. We also do have a DLC coming. This one is a paid DLC because it's much bigger than just characters. That is a very well-known IP that we're partnering with to add content to Super Dark Deception. That's going to be in between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. So that will come out after we patch and fix everything with Chapter 1. We haven't set an announcement date or a release date for that yet, but I think it will surprise a lot of people. We've never worked with this partner before, and it's a very well-known game. So that'll probably drop right before Chapter 2 launches in September. So my guess would be somewhere in August, maybe around the same time as the console release for Chapter 1. Since I think a lot of people have had trouble understanding this with the pricing of Super Dark Deception, is that the idea was it's going to be basically like Dark Deception Complete, whereas you basically pre-purchase everything up front, and then all of the chapters are added for free. You don't pay again after that. So the benefit of that is that usually people buy the game on sale. You know, a launch is a kind of a one-time special event, and you're only usually allowed to discount it up to about 15%. Most game teams will discount about 10% at launch. So most of our sales have happened during sales that come later, after the game's already launched. So most people buy Dark Deception at like 50% off or 30% off. And Super Dark Deception is going to be pretty much the same. So they get the entire game at a heavily discounted price. Because once the game is done, you know, as development costs go up over the years, the price will be adjusted when it hits that final release. So Dark Deception's $20 price was basically originally a early supporter price, kind of like a stealth early access. So we gave people already a big discount up front, because it was supposed to be 25, but then it became 20 for the complete version, and then they would get additional discounts on sales. So they've already paid and they get Chapter 5 and everything at basically what will eventually be much larger than 50% off. Because when it releases on consoles, it's probably going to go up to what is now kind of the standard price for like Bendy, FNAF type games. They're all between like 30 and 40 now to cover the cost of the increased production values. You know, now the expectation for these games have gone up. They're not quite AAA yet, but they're getting close. I mean, you've seen like Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 and Bendy in the Dark Revival. The expectation for visuals keeps going up, which means the cost of development keeps going up. So as a result, these game prices are going to increase. They're never going to go to $60. Like that's not indie game pricing, but definitely I think 30 is kind of like the sweet spot for developers now. So I would kind of expect that when Chapter 5 releases and we put out the full Dark Deception game with all the bells and whistles and some extra content on consoles, that's the price point they're going to put it at. That way we have plenty of room to put it on sale later. So yeah, that's kind of just to give you a heads up on what's coming with Super Dark Deception. So that's why it's priced up front. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 are free. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of Chapter 5, Dark Deception Chapter 5 questions. So I'm not going to take anything away from you with Dark Deception Chapter 5. I'll look through what you all ask, and I'll kind of answer the Chapter 5 stuff that way. So I'm not going to do any announcements on Chapter 5 or give any dates or anything like that. Dark Deception Chapter 5 does have a teaser coming. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say when. I'm not going to say, is it this year or next year? Because, well, you know, once I give people an expectation, they tend to get a little agitated if it changes. So I don't want to set you guys up for disappointment or fill anyone with false hope. It will release. I mean, we want to make a big splash with Chapter 5, so it will release when it's the right time, when everything's kind of lined up and ready. Timing is very important for Chapter 5. So a lot of people don't understand why they haven't seen anything. And they think, you know, I get the, the game's dead because you haven't said anything for 3 years or whatever. You know, they keep increasing it. It's some people are saying 5 years, 6 years. Like, pretty soon they're just going to say 84 years. But, I mean, the same thing happened to Bendy when they were doing Bendy in the Dark Revival. They went radio silent for 4 years. A lot of the fans attacked them and told them the Bendy fandom was dead. We're used to that. The developers, we've already put that into our expectations. We're already very prepared to weather that out. Putting pressure on the game developers and like demanding teasers and demanding screenshots, it's not going to make them crack and like, oh God, you guys are all screaming at me. Here you go. Here's everything. Please. No. I mean, we want to show you guys. I mean, it's so hard not to show our progress because we put so much work in and it looks awesome and we really want to show it off, but we know we can't. Not until it gets close to release. So hopefully Dark Deception fans, at least the ones that have been with us for a while since Chapter 1, they understand that. But a lot of the new fans don't. So if you can kind of explain that to them, because they're not always here on the live streams, like this stuff will eventually release. At one point, everybody was screaming for Chapter 4, and that did release. Chapter 5 will release. And it will be worth the wait. But I can't show as much or anything when people want to see it. So I can only say it's coming at this point. Because I know that's the big one. That's the one everybody wants. We're fully aware. So we're getting to that. It's getting closer and closer. That's all I can say. But I'm going to save that for the questions because I see already everything is Chapter 5, mostly. So on the note, for Monsters and Mortals fans, Monsters and Mortals has 2 DLC coming this year. One that I've already kind of announced, which is the Coma 2 Vicious Sisters DLC. That one's already getting pretty close to done. So I would guess August or September release for that. There's a few kind of last remaining obstacles that we have to get past, but that one's almost there as far as being complete. And then the big one everyone's waiting for, which is the Piggy and Doors free DLC combo. And yeah, there's going to be 2 maps for that. So Piggy will get a map and Doors will get a map. And We're not allowed to call it Roblox, so it's just going to be called Piggy Indoors. Um, and then you'll have a set of Piggy characters and Doors-based characters. And each map will have its own boss that's tailored to to the game that it's related to. So that one will be free on everything. We're not going to charge any money for that. That's kind of a thank you to all of our supporters that have supported Monsters and Mortals for over 3 years now. I mean, every day I see news about some big AAA multiplayer game going down in 1 week or a few months or 1 year, and they spent millions of dollars on that game, and for at least 200 to 400 people, that was their the thing they worked on for that long, that they applied their skill to and put all of their effort into, and then it's just gone. So I really don't take for granted that the support Monsters and Mortals has received, and I'm very thankful for that. That we can keep making DLC for this game and keep adding to it and keep sharing that with all of you. So I'm really looking forward to getting both of these DLC out this year. We've already delivered House of Ashes this year, and then like 1 month last year was Poppy Playtime. So I think we've done almost 4 DLCs for Monsters and Mortals within the span of like a year and just a little bit over a year. So it's been very productive. I'm excited to see it on consoles. Oh yeah, the console ports. Monsters and Mortals console ports are still on track for August. There's a chance it could slip to September, but they will absolutely release this year, 2024. So you'll all be able to play Monsters and Mortals on consoles very soon. Of course, since it is Unreal Engine 5, and just due to the cost of porting, based on the amount of support that Monsters and Mortals gets, we're starting off with Xbox Series SX and PlayStation 5. So we're supporting the most powerful consoles that have the largest install base. Obviously, Switch has a much larger install base than Xbox, but Switch is an undeveloped or a underpowered piece of hardware from 7 years ago. It really can't handle Unreal Engine 5 very well. And you've seen that with ports from things like Mortal Kombat 11 and Mortal Kombat 1 and some other games that tried to push these really intensive, demanding games onto Switch. It just doesn't work. So when Switch 2 comes out, then we can look at a Monsters and Mortals port, which actually works out really great for Chapter 5 because Dark Deception was not looking good on Switch. So we're really happy that Switch 2 is right around the corner. That's probably the one we're going to port Dark Deception to, so that we don't have to make it look terrible to make it run well. So yeah, hopefully Switch 2 doesn't delay. I think they've said some point 2025. I don't know if it was early or mid. Maybe somebody in the chat knows that keeps up with Nintendo more than I do. But apparently it's right around the corner. So that's actually great news for us. And Dark Deception actually is in the process of being upgraded to Unreal Engine 5 to add some extra features. So it will need the extra power from the Nintendo hardware. And then lastly, House. House has done well on consoles, and the only platform that we haven't released it to yet is mobile. So House is coming to mobile within the next 2 months. We'll be finally releasing that, and we'll also be releasing, of course, the Super Dark Deception mobile ports as well. Those are coming soon once we have the patch done. So 2 of our games will be on mobile very soon. And really good news, House will be free on mobile. So House is going to be a free mobile release. You will not have to pay for it. Super Dark Deception will not be free. Sorry, we can only do one. And then House 2 is still in development. It's looking amazing, and we are going to drop some teasers for House 2, probably to coincide with the release of House 1 on mobile. We will drop some kind of really enticing teasers for House 2, because that's going to be another, I would put it, equally big as far as a release goes to Dark Deception Chapter 5. That one, House has a lot of fans, and this one is so much bigger than the first game, which captured a lot of people's attention. So I'm really excited to see what they think when they see the full game and see how gruesome it is and how deprived a lot of the moments in that game are. I think if you've seen the Tokyo Game Show trailer that we showed, that we actually had to heavily censor just to be allowed to show it on the showroom floor because of the Japanese censorship laws. Um, Uncensored, it is a wild ride. You guys are, if you have a strong stomach, you're gonna like it. All right, I have rambled for about 21 minutes now, so we are gonna get straight to the questions. I know that's what you've all been waiting for. I think I've said everything I need to say. I'm gonna take a quick sip of my coffee and then I will rewind back to whoever dropped the first question and kick it off with that. So we're just gonna go straight to super chats. I usually do member questions, but honestly, a lot of our members are here in the chat anyway. So I'll dig through some member questions after we do super chats, and then that'll kind of be a wrap. Today's live stream is going to be a little bit shorter just because it's not so structured. I think maybe an hour to 2 hours. So I know some people like to do like machine gun super chats that are smaller, but you want to give everybody a chance to ask a question. So just kind of consolidate that a little bit so it doesn't drag out too long. Let me kind of jump back. Okay. Start with Autumn Azure. And they just made a donation of $1, but thank you very much. Virtual Man. Oh, I got it on the screen too. Okay. Virtual Man threw in 10. Thank you, Virtual Man. And they say, for DD, Monsters and Mortals, are there any other crossovers, DLCs planned after Roblox doors? I understand if you can't reveal what they are, but are you able to at least confirm or deny their existence? We have a couple that we're kind of chasing or looking at, but nothing really concrete enough that I would say yes or guarantee another release. I think for us, after the Doors and Piggy Combo DLC, the attention will shift more to updating the base game. So there's some really cool levels that we have kind of almost done or near done that we haven't put in, especially Chapter 4 levels, things like Joy Joy Land with Joy Kill as the boss. That would add a lot of value to the base game. And single player is something we still have to get in. So we have plenty of things that we can add with the base game that will give us some time to look for, you know, guest DLCs that fit and are more interesting. And of course, we definitely want to get the console version out first to kind of boost the numbers. You know, when partners come and talk to us about being a guest in Monsters and Mortals, the first thing they do is look at, well, how many players do you have? And how much revenue has the game made? They don't care as much about concurrent players because our game's not a free, you know, a freemium game. We're not handing it out for free and selling in-app purchases to make our money. We just charge one price up front, and that's pretty much it, besides the DLC. So in order for them to agree to be a partner in the game, they have to see enough of a business opportunity in the game to make that work. That's why, like I've mentioned in previous DLC or Q&A sessions, that we would love to have Resident Evil in the Monsters and Mortals game as a guest DLC. I mean, they've already done Dead by Daylight, and honestly, Capcom is very business oriented. They absolutely would support Monsters and Mortals with the DLC if we had the numbers to get their interest. We're not quite there yet. So, you know, I told the community many times Monster Mortals has done very well for the type of game it is, being a cheap little indie budget game. I mean, it's the equivalent of a B movie, but it's sold over 124,000 copies, which seems to some people like a big number, but to a company like Capcom, that's small. You know, I've said probably nothing less than 500,000 is going to make them take a look. So we have a little ways to go. But the game's still doing well, continues to sell. So we'll keep supporting it until the community tells us they don't want it anymore, and then we'll stop. Let me see. We've got another one from anonymous person, and they mentioned that $5. Thank you very much. Hi Vince, anonymous fan here. What will be the Coma DLC trap time? Oh, okay. The Coma DLC trap time actually has not been set yet. For some reason, we've been dragging that out until the very end. Because as you know, the boss time is the Butcher. If any of you have played Vicious Sisters, it has the Butcher as the kind of enemy in the market, that Korean market that you go to. I always forget the name. It's it starts with a D. It's like I want to say Dokenbori, but I know that's wrong, and I probably have some Korean fans that are going to get pissed at me for butchering it. Dokebi, I think it's Dokebi Market. But the game itself doesn't actually have any traps except for these kind of vines. But that doesn't... So this is something we've been working out with the developer, Devora, as to what will be the trap. So we have a couple options. We just haven't really decided on one yet. So the rest of the level's pretty much done except for that. But adding the trap is pretty easy. That would only take a couple days to get that in. So as soon as I have that info and we've made a decision, I'll share that online with the community just to let you guys know. I don't really keep that kind of stuff secret. I usually share all the details for a Monsters and Mortals level prior to the release, just because we don't really do the showcase videos anymore. So yeah, I'm not sure why we've delayed on this DLC with that so much. It's just kind of how it's going. Let's see. The next one is Navir Pascali. Hi Vince, we're going to face... Oh, threw in 5 reals. Thank you very much. Hi, Vince. We're going to face Mama Bear again since the altar of Barely Buried was empty, or at least know why it was like that. Greetings from Brazil. I assume you're doing... we are going to face... Okay. I don't know if you're a streamer or if you're just playing through it for the first time, but yeah. Good luck against Mama Bear. It sounds like maybe you're already at Zone 3 if you're reaching Mama Bear's altar. Or that kind of altar in the secret room. That's my guess. But thank you for supporting us and stopping by the live stream. Is this one? Anonymous fan. Oh, okay, we've got 2 more. Oh, but they're spaced out. Okay, I'll do them separate. Another one from Anonymous fan for $5. What is the Piggy map? Also, what Piggy characters will be in the DLC? The Piggy map is not being developed right now. So we're doing Doors first, and the Piggy map hasn't been developed first because we're still kind of talking with Minitoon about the selection. So we have a few options that we're kind of deciding between. Doors doesn't really have that problem, so we've kind of started with Doors first. Let's see. We've got one from Alp for 2001. He says, STD Korean is not good. Will it be fixed? I'm curious, because I can interpret that a few ways. When you say the Korean is not good, are you talking about the localization, or are you just meaning the game in general, the one that you buy in Korea? Because if it's the game, those are the problems affect everybody. It's not just the Korean version that's global, because that's kind of what we're patching right now. If it's the localization, if you think the Korean translations are not good, then please send me an email and let me know that's what you meant, because then I can take a deeper look at the Korean translations and make sure they're all natural sounding. I don't speak any Korean, so I wouldn't be able to recognize it right away. We use a localization partner for all of our translations that is actually really good and does translations for many, many games. So we can always bring that up with them and get things fixed. If you see a translation that is inaccurate or wrong, just kind of screen capture it and send it to me and we'll get it fixed. Another one from Anonymous Fan, $5 again. Thank you so much for your multiple contributions. is prisoner Borisov supposed to be the main protagonist of the first Monstrum, or is he just another victim of the Hisamaru cargo ship? Actually, prisoner Borisov is non-canon because the problem was that Monstrum didn't had a protagonist, but they didn't have any lore around him. So there wasn't really any backstory for the character, and the character actually didn't even have a face. It was just basically a body mesh that runs around. They never designed a look for their character. So we couldn't really work with that, so we had to create our own character, which is another prisoner or another victim of the Hisamaru cargo ship. So yeah, he's non-canon, but he still fits very well into the Monstrum universe. If they ever want to put him in a game and make it Prisoner Borisov as the protagonist, I will gladly let them use the model. Okay, Autumn Azure threw in 2. Can you tell me anything about Mecha Monkey? Oh boy, here comes Chapter 5 questions. Okay. Well, I've mentioned Mecha Monkey, so everybody knows about it and that it's part of Chapter 5. There's not many details I can give about it prior to the trailer. I can say I have kind of an idea of what everybody's imagining for that, and it's very different from that. So I don't want to ruin the surprise prior to that, but it is what you think it is as far as like a mechanical monkey. But it will kind of subvert your expectations a bit. We'll just put it that way. That's the most I can tell prior to the release. Let's see. Sir Chicken Nugget, $1.99. Thank you, Sir Chicken Nugget. Any updates on the Piggy DLC? Yeah. If you're just joining us, I gave some updates about the Piggy DLC. It's in development now. We're targeting it probably end of 2024 for that, maybe in time for Christmas. We'll see. But just in case anyone here doesn't know, it's going to be a free DLC, and it's combined with Doors. So it's a Piggy and Doors combo, kind of like a Best of Roblox DLC, but not called Roblox. And it will have 2 maps, 1 for each game, as well as 1 set of characters for each game for both Mortals and Monsters side. Okay, another one from Anonymous Fan. Thank you. Through another 5. How many unrevealed DLCs are there for Super Dark Deception? Currently, there's 2. One is confirmed. The other one is kind of in the final stages of being confirmed, being signed, so that we can announce it. But I can't announce anything yet. The first one I'll probably be able to announce within the next month. And they're both pretty big. One of them, I would say, is iconic. So I'm very excited to share those news, but I don't feel it's appropriate right now until we fix the problems with Super Dark Deception and get that into a better place. So that's why I haven't really talked about the DLC or shared anything, is we're more focused on fixing the launch issues with Chapter 1 and getting Chapter 2 out so that it's not a long wait between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. So Chapter 2 right now is still targeting September, so it won't be that long, about 2 months. So once Chapter 2 is in, maybe people will have less of a problem with the price up front because most of the game content will be there, except for the Chapter 3 levels, which are basically the Dark Deception Chapter 5 levels, but with a lot of extra little stuff that are Super Dark Deception exclusives. Let's see. Okay, Jay the Gamer, 18, through in 5. I meant to ask last stream, could William Afton be one of the murder monkeys since he's a murderer? How do you make the sound effect for the stun orb? The stun orb. I know who William Afton is because there's so many FNAF fans that I hear everything about FNAF lore. But I don't know the entire lore of William Afton because I've only played the first FNAF game. I haven't even played Security Breach yet. I've watched a few videos about it, but I am severely behind on all the FNAF games. Maybe when I finally get all of these games done, I will go back and replay all of the other games that are in kind of our category. Like I never finished Bendy and the Ink Machine. I started Bendy in the Dark Revival, but I never finished playing through all of it. Instead, I watched some videos of YouTubers I like Super Horror Bro and 8-Bit Ryan and Corey Kenshin. I watched them play it um, because I'm always working. So the easiest thing for me to do is just pop it up on a window and watch it while I work. It's kind of like a background noise. And that goes for the FNAF games too. So I'm definitely not the person to ask for anything about FNAF lore. Like, probably somebody in this chat could answer that a lot better. But I thought he was the one shoving people into mechanical suits. But again, if that's completely wrong, that's because I know nothing about FNAF. But yeah, I mean, technically, since he likes to murder, technically, well, he murders children. Yeah, he would become one of them. And that might also create another child demon like Agatha at the same time. So there's a lot of maybes there with that scenario. Complex. Adam Azura threw in too. Thank you, Autumn. Are Darkstar or Minions androids? Sorry, since it's so late here, I'm kind of reading things a little bit weird. Are Darkstar or Minions androids? Okay. No, she's not a robot. She is something else. But yeah, I think a lot of people, when I posted that image of kind of the Darkstar looking head, assume that it's an exoskeleton for her. Actually, it's not. It's something else entirely. But it does relate to her. So I would say they're half right, half wrong. You'll kind of find out more later, and then it'll make a lot more sense. Let's see, another one from Anonymous through in 10. I know there have been some game devs that declined for Monsters and Mortals crossover, but have there been any games that declined a Super Dark Deception crossover? No, because we're actually, well, I handle all the licensing for all of our games. So I will go out and talk to companies and developers that I think are cool or would be a good addition for Monsters and Mortals or Super Dark Deception. And, since Super Dark Deception is very, very new, it doesn't have like an installed base of players yet. I haven't been as aggressive in talking to partners for that. I've talked to 2 really big ones, and those are the ones we're kind of moving forward with right now. And I have another one kind of in mind that I would love to talk to. I mean, this is obvious to everybody. I love Capcom. So Capcom is one that I have on my radar that I'm definitely thinking about for Super Dark Deception, but I'm not really going to pursue that yet because we don't have Chapter 2 out, and we don't have the console versions out, and we don't have the mobile version out. So, first things first. But I think we have 2 really great ones to kick things off with. And if the community supports those 2 and they do well, that will definitely open the door to other really cool DLCs. I will say these DLCs are completely different from the ones from Monsters and Mortals. We are not doing repeat DLCs. So these are both brand new partners that we've never done previously. That's going to be kind of the way that'll keep Monsters and Mortals and Super Dark Deception separate, is they're targeting very different game partners to work with. Monsters and Mortals is more of like anything that has had an impact on the horror gaming genre, be it traditional games, AAA games, indie games, or YouTube horror games, or even YouTube horror content creators. Anyone and any game that's had a massive impact. Although I did say before we're not doing any more people. We've kind of found recently that putting people in your game is one, definitely timestamps your game, because popularity is always, coming and going and fading. Somebody that's super popular now may not be super popular a couple years from now. Also, you may have a scandal, an incident, some kind of incident pop up, like what's happening with Dr. Disrespect. So it makes it very risky to put real people into your game. So we're kind of not going to do that anymore. We're going to stick with game IP. Um, and that's pretty much going to be the only thing I target for DLCs. So Monsters and Mortals can work with a wider range of DLC partners than Super Dark Deception can. Super Dark Deception is more targeting DLC that really relates to what that game does. So classic 2D horror games, anything that has kind of a similar spirit or gameplay that is also iconic or famous, or has, even if it's like a cult hit, if it had a huge lasting impact on horror gaming and inspired other games, those are things that we will kind of look at. But we're mostly looking at like 2D horror gaming examples for that one, whereas Monsters and Mortals was more 3D. Let me find my spot again. Grandom Rye threw in 5. Thank you, Grandom. Since Chapter 5 is presumably giving more flashback sequences, I'll ask, what is it like for Christopher Corey Smith to be voicing Doug Hauser? I think he's had a great time, and Christopher Corey Smith is really easy to work with. He's super talented. I've never worked with or I haven't worked with many actors at his level that are as talented as he is. I think him, Dark Deception is extremely lucky to have a group of actors that are all really talented. I can't really say any of them are not super talented. Like, you got Carolyn Seymour and Christopher Corey Smith and Chris J. Alex and Tara Strong. It's just a really great list of actors, and we're really privileged to work with them. And Christopher Corey Smith is definitely, top tier. He's been working in so many games his entire career, really well-known games. If any of you follow him, he does all kinds of stuff like Lego Batman, Our Game. There's too many to mention. His IMDb is like a mile long. But I think what's most impressive about him is how chill he is. Like, some actors, you come in and they have a hard time relaxing, or they have a set way they like to do everything. He's just very down to earth and fluid and easy to work with, easy to talk to. So I really appreciate actors like that are, they kind of leave their ego at the door if they even have one. They're not too big on themselves. They just take everything pretty easy. And I've actually made him very uncomfortable sometimes. I feel bad because he's Doug Hauser, and Doug Hauser is not really a great person. So he says a lot of awful things in the game. And I have to kind of warn Christopher Corey Smith prior that he's about to record some awful lines, like with Chapter 4, with the family flashbacks. A lot of things he says to his wife, and what he says to Tammy, or what he says about Tammy, and the way he sees and refers to his family. That's not easy to get into character and read that kind of stuff out loud. And yeah, he's just like, whoa. He's like, Doug Hauser's, I'm going to censor the words he used. He's just like, Doug Hauser's not a great guy. We'll put it that way. And Chapter 5 really doubles down on that and makes it even worse, because you haven't seen the worst of Doug yet. And Chapter 5 really shows you the worst of Doug. But it also shows you the best of him. So he gets a good mix. It allows him to really, play around and use his acting chops a lot. Let's see, Tony BG threw in 5. Thank you, Tony. Are we going to get more OSTs for Chapter 5 and the rest of the OSTs for Super Dark Deception? Yeah. Super Dark Deception, I'm actually about to, kind of what we did for Dark Deception, I'm going to put out a mini album based on each chapter that people can buy. That'll be on Spotify and Amazon and basically everything. We'll do mini albums for each chapter, and then we'll do one compilation that has all of them together. If you buy each one individually, it's pretty much the same thing. So we're going to offer that pretty soon. So you're able to buy and listen to the Super Dark Deception songs on anything that you want to listen to it on. We'll also put them on YouTube, because that's kind of part of that package, as it gets uploaded to YouTube too. And then as far as Chapter 5 OSTs, I have to be a little bit more selective with that because some of the music is kind of a spoiler, either because they have vocals or just because of the melody. It gives away kind of the moment. Like people can listen to that melody and guess what's going on. So I won't be able to release all Chapter 5 tracks, just the ones that don't really spoil anything. So action tracks are fine because it's people can just listen to it and be like, oh, that's a pursuit song, or this is a normal song for one of the maze zones. Those ones are fine. Those ones I will release as we go. I know everyone's going to ask about Prison Panic and Dark Star. Her music I can't really release because it's a very specific style, and I don't want to ruin that style or reveal it. Now that everybody's kind of data mined Super Dark Deception, and I forgot to take out one of the files that had naming for the Chapter 5 last two levels, they know that that's Fear Fortress and Wicked Ways, which is fine. I mean, that's not really like a huge spoiler because neither name really gives away what those levels are about. So I didn't mind that. That's all good. So we do have a lot of music tracks for those as well, but I'm not ready to release them yet. So we'll probably I'll roll out maybe one or two of them uh, over the next few months for those levels, just because I don't want to give away any of the kind of emotional moments in the game or the kind of cutscene events. So I'm not going to do any music that relates to like a cutscene or anything like that because it's a little bit too easy to read and interpret. But anything with maze zones, I will. So yeah, you can expect more tracks coming. Let's see. Kai's Pro Gamer threw in $1.99. Thank you. Why is Super Dark Deception not out on PS4? Well, if you just joined us, it's because the console release is now delayed an extra 30 days so that we can get all of the patched fixes for the PC version into the console version. That way, it doesn't go out with all the bugs that the PC version went out with that we have to fix and go through Sony to patch it. And the patch takes like another month or month and a half. This is much faster. So it delays it 30 days, but that's better than being delayed, 1 or 2 months. Because once it gets into the holidays, Sony is really, really busy with all the game releases. They start getting all those huge AAA games. All their QA testers are basically prioritizing those games from huge studios like Activision and EA and whoever's got like a AAA game coming out. So little indie devs kind of get pushed to the wayside and their games can sit in a review queue for quite a while. So we definitely don't want to get stuck in that line. So it's better to just delay it now, get it out by the end of August, and then you can all play it on everything. So it'll be on PS4, PS5, Switch, Xbox Series X, Xbox One, mobile, Android, and iOS. So yeah, you'll be able to play it on everything. I'm actually really looking forward to playing it on Switch, surprisingly, because I have a Super Nintendo controller and I've been dying to use it, and that's kind of what I bought it for, was to play Super Dark Deception on Switch with a old school Super NES controller. So I'm excited for that. So that should be pretty soon. Loaf of Brie threw in 5. Thank you. Can you share the name of the TV head enemy that was teased in the Blob over a year ago? Ooh, no, I can't. I can't point to where it is either, but I think you'll see it pretty soon. Let's see, another 5 from Anonymous Fan. It is said in the game that the Joy Joy Gang do not have human souls, but have some kind of soul. Were they animals that turned into nightmares? We haven't really... So the Joy Joy Gang really gets fleshed out in Chapter 5. You were just kind of introduced to them in Chapter 4, but you really don't know that much about them. And even within that short little Chapter 4 story arc, there were a lot of things that were kind of left as holes that were kind of filling in with the updates that they're going to go out with Chapter 5. But in Chapter 5, you'll really see the dynamic of their relationship between Lucky, Penny, and Hangry. and their motivations and a bit of their background, like what happened before they wound up with Malik. You know, the Joy Joy Gang has been around for a long, long time, and they are more than just the mascot costumes that they wear. So a lot of that will be explored and answered in Chapter 5. It does still leave some things open for interpretation, but you'll have a lot better sense of what they're all about, including what their origin is, to a degree. So that one I'm going to save for Chapter 5 because I think it will kind of answer your question for you there. But yeah, nothing to do. It's not animals. I can at least cross that one off for you. Let's see. Jay the Gamer 18 threw in another 5. Thank you again. Will we see other humans in Chapter 5? Possibly. Could the amazing digital circus come to M&M's or Monsters and Mortals in the future? I would love to play as Kane or Pomni. Let me see. Humans. Actually, yes. There are other... And I actually teased that. I did share that bit of info. There are mortal souls in Chapter 5 that you will be able to talk to. They mostly relate to... Well, I can give this one away. They mostly relate to Prison Panic. So, of course, since Prison Panic is a prison, you run into other prisoners there that you will kind of encounter and be able to talk to. So there's also going to be some kind of secret mortals that you can find that are kind of Easter eggs if you are diligent enough to kind of look around and find them. So it's just a little extra thing. And that's not the only place where you'll encounter other mortals. So this will be the first time where you kind of feel like Doug's not the only mortal soul in all of the nightmare realms that he's in. As far as Amazing Digital Circus, probably not because, I don't know. I mean, would you classify that as horror? I guess it does have kind of like a nightmarish scenario. I mean, full disclosure, I've only seen the first episode. So it does have kind of a, I don't know, psychological thing element to it as far as their situation. But we probably want to keep it like something more visibly horror that doesn't need so much explanation to make people get it. I mean, if I was just all about money, I would put Digital Circus in, no questions asked, just because of the massive following it has. But I'd rather focus on like iconic horror and horror that's very, I guess, intuitive, very easy to grasp that this is horror, that this is a horror game, and it's also something people recognize and relate to. So that's why we have the wish list of things like we got Poppy Playtime. I guess on the YouTube horror list would still be like FNAF and Bendy. On traditional horror, that would be something like Resident Evil or some other really good, maybe Dino Crisis, I don't know. Some like really cool Capcom horror games. I know Konami had a few in the past. Just things. There's also like Fatal Frame, stuff kind of on that list. We don't want to dig too much from YouTube because that will kind of transform the game and skew it too much to YouTube, and then it will become unbalanced. So we want it to, Monsters and Mortals, to kind of have something for everybody from all different crowds, not cater too much to one crowd, if that makes sense. Anonymous fan threw another 2. What is the name of the blue mannequins? Blue mannequins? That's new. Did somebody create blue mannequins and then convince everybody that they're part of the game? There are no blue mannequins, unless that's what you're trying to get out of me, just to cross off a color. No, the only color they have is red. And they are called the Red Stalkers. I'm pretty sure I've said that. There are white mannequins as well, but they're a little bit different. So yeah, it's kind of like the Reaper nurses. It's like red and white. Let's see. Jay the Gamer threw another 5. What company would you partner with to make a Dark Deception TV show? Will you make will you get a weapon in holiday horror to use on the mannequins? Well, to answer your first question, if I had my choice, I would work with Trigger Studio. Same studio that did Edge Runners for Cyberpunk 2077, and they also did a recent series that I like. It's called, if you like anime, there's one called Delicious in Dungeon. But their animation is just amazing. I always love how fluid it is and how well done it is. So if I could do a TV show with Dark Deception that was animated, it would probably be the Japanese anime style, and it would be Trigger Studio. If it was live action, then probably somebody like A24 would be pretty good. That's if they gave me my choice. You don't always get that. As far as a weapon in holiday horror, kind of. Yeah, you do get something. I'm not going to call it a weapon. I'm just going to say you do get to use something. So yeah, we continue that mechanic that started in Crazy Carnival, that at some point each level there'll be something that you can use to defend yourself or accomplish a goal, or usually in relation to like a boss or mini boss fight. So yeah, we're not abandoning that mechanic. It's used in probably all the Chapter 5 levels. Let's see, Shadow X Acne. Oh, did I skip anybody? No, okay. Through and 5, can we expect the Super Dark Deception gameplay and mechanic differences to be in the base game once Chapter 5 releases? Not all. Okay, so the idea with Super Dark Deception and Dark Deception is that essentially they are the same game. It's based on the same story. But Super Dark Deception allows us to do some things in 2D that don't work well in 3D. Things like the Elise cutscenes or the E-Note cutscenes. In 3D, that doesn't work quite as well because it's all first person. And I think there's a lot of things in 3D that work much better than they do in 2D. That's where you have like the emotional impact of the cutscenes. Obviously, some little sprites don't deliver that emotional moment as well as fully 3D models do. So we wanted to kind of put some exclusive stuff in Dark Deception that's not in Super Dark Deception, and some exclusive stuff in Super Dark Deception that's not in Dark Deception. So not everything will transition between the games. That includes any sort of improvements to the base game, and as far as like the UI system, how we present things in Super Dark Deception, doesn't mean we're going to change the UI in Dark Deception to be exactly the same as that. They'll each have their own kind of unique interface and rules, even though they follow the same story. And that's mainly because Super Dark Deception kind of requires a different rule set, because you can't look straight ahead of you and see the enemies. They come in from off screen, so you have far less time to react to the enemies approaching you. So we kind of have to balance them differently than we do in Dark Deception. So you can't really take one mechanics from one game and slap it into the other, like copy paste it over into it. It won't work as well. It could make the game too easy, too hard. So they're both going to have kind of their own different rule sets. That's why I said it is essentially the same story, but it's a very different way to experience it. So they are different games. And Super Dark Deception is going to have a lot of goofy extras that Dark Deception's too serious to have. I mean, we're talking about like putting in a bunch of like old school retro mini games like Super Mario Kart, but Dark Deception, and we have some partner games coming in. They're too silly to put into Dark Deception. And then Dark Deception, we may not do any like licensed partner DLC for Dark Deception. If we do a Dark Deception, it may just be like a side story with an existing character or an expansion of that existing story. So we're not going to do like the Monsters and Mortals treatment with Dark Deception. So it's very different in that way too, because Super Dark Deception is absolutely going that way, where we're going to have all these crazy guest maps and level editor and like guest DLCs. You know, it's a lot more open for that kind of playfulness than Dark Deception is. So they each have kind of the value they offer the Dark Deception community. Sorry, let me find my place again. DJ Bonds. Hey, Vince. How was your day? I hope it's going good. And I got one question for you. What setting does Holiday Horror take place at? Daytime or nighttime? Well, Holiday Horror is kind of like um, Mama Bear's third zone in that it's kind of a surreal environment. It doesn't really have a time of day. So, yeah, I can't give you an answer for that because it's mostly a surreal environment. Oh, that's okay. I just noticed that the super chats start to show. I don't know how long that's been there. I haven't done a stream in a while. It's like showing how long each person's been a member, or is it how long they've been on YouTube? All right. Well, another one from Anonymous Fan. Thank you for another 5. It says, "Is it true that Fear Fortress and Wicked Ways are the 11th and 12th names, or is that misinformation from rumors?" No, that is true. The 11th and 12th level names are Fear Fortress and Wicked Ways. So those are, now you know all 4 level names. It's Holiday Horror, Prison Panic, Fear Fortress, and Wicked Ways. But there is a secret 5th level that nobody knows the name of. So you don't know everything. That one I did not put into the sheet, so I'll be a lot more cautious about that next time. You're not going to be able to dig it out again. If anybody's wondering why, because I saw they data mined the mural art that goes in the archive room. If you're wondering why that other side is pretty blank, like has a lot of negative space, it's because I removed all the chapter 5 characters because I knew people would data mine it and use it as spoilers. So when chapter 3 comes out, I will put all the remaining art back into that image so that it can look proper. It won't, that side will not unlock in chapter 2, so it's not going to be revealed before chapter 3. Unicat Ninjas threw in 5. Vader Gamer asks, okay, you're here for a friend. Will there be any other boss skins for the players such as Joykill and Super Dark Deception? And how much will Super Dark Deception cost on mobile? As far as boss skins go, no, he's just gonna look basically like how he normally looks for the boss fight. And as far as how much will SDD cost on mobile, it's going to be a lower price. So SDD on mobile will cost probably about, I'm trying to remember what price point we agreed on. I think it's going to be about $6 for the entire game. So about $2 per chapter. That way it's cheap for people to get it on PC or a console and then get that as the mobile version if they don't have like a Switch or something. Yeah. So not too bad, right? $6. But kind of the same way, it's going to be charged up front because we're doing the same thing. It's just basically going to be chapter 1, and then when chapter 2 and 3 drop, you get all of that content will be updated to your build for free. So you'll be able to go instantly to the chapter 2 levels and then to the chapter 3 levels. So you only have to buy it once. And then phone auto updates. So you should be able, unless you turn off your auto update, you should be able to get the content update immediately. If you turned it off, then you have to kind of go in and manually update your application. Let's see. Okay, Jay the Gamer threw in, oh, he's got 2 in a row, so I'll just read them both. He threw in 10. Thank you, Jay. Once again. How did Doug's wife end up in Malik's nightmare realm? What happened to the murder monkey in the hallway before Crazy Carnival? And Stranger Sewers. Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought you were talking about the one in the wagon in Crazy Carnival, but then the Stranger Sewers thing threw me off, but I know you're talking about the red hallway. So as far as Doug's wife ending up in Malik's nightmare realm, that is explained in chapter 5. So I can't answer that one. But in chapter 5, that will be answered. Also, Super Dark Deception, chapter 3. If you're waiting for kind of the visual telling of that story, then you'll want to play Super Dark Deception because that's the one that will do all the cutscenes. And as far as the murder monkey, I'll let the fans write his story. That lone murder monkey in the hallway, where did he go? Somebody write a fan fiction. Maybe I'll make that part of the ending in Super Dark Deception. What happened to that monkey? That'd be kind of fun. Second question from Jay the Gamer. How does Doug open the doors in Stranger Sewers and Mascot Mayhem? How fast does Doug run without the speed boost? How high is the water in SS? Okay, we got a laundry list of questions. Let me break them down. Let me start with the first one. Is this relating to Dark Deception or Super Dark Deception? So, I mean, opening the doors in Stranger Sewers and Mascot Mayhem. Oh, you're talking about because you just go up and click on it and it goes up and there's not actually like a button or anything or like a door handle. He just kind of touches it and opens. That's called, that's just called some bullshit. Some game design BS. He just taps the door and it opens. It's magic. So let's all imagine that there's a button there and that he taps it so that I don't have to model buttons in the future and make it that immersive that you have to like open a panel or something. Yeah, that's like a design shortcut just to something we didn't really think about. We just like, oh, door opens. Okay. Touch door, it opens. How fast does Doug run with or without the speed boost? Well, I mean, his normal run isn't fast enough to get away from anything except for the murder monkeys. So that's kind of his base run value. And with the speed boost, it depends how much you've kind of amplified or leveled up the speed boost. So, I mean, on the lowest level, the level 1 speed boost, that's good enough to get away from enemies like Agatha who are fast, or faster than Doug. That's the only way you can get away from her. But later on with like chapter 5 enemies, like the mannequins, level 1 speed boost won't be fast enough. And then how high is the water in SS? I don't know. We didn't measure it. I mean, it's kind of up right above his knees or up to his waist a little bit. I think in Super Dark Deception, it comes up to about his waist. So we made it feel a little bit deeper in Super Dark Deception than we did in Dark Deception. I think originally in Dark Deception, it was only intended to be like slightly above his ankles. Like just enough to slosh his feet and make it hard to run. But in Super Dark Deception, we wanted to be a little bit more impressive visually. Like we wanted to see him kind of wading through the water and waist high. That way there's a little bit more understanding why it slows him down. Especially when he has the power to speed boost himself. Like that would still definitely slow him down a bit, even with speed boost. Sam the Horror Gamer threw in 5 pounds? No, euros. Let's see, in chapter 5, we will get confirmation about the role of enemies like the Dread Duckies and Watchers in Malik's army. Or he's asking, will we get? Yeah, so in chapter 5, I think what I really enjoyed about chapter 5 as far as writing the story is that it really let me finally kind of flesh out the world more and the characters more and show not just the scope of the world, these nightmare realms that they're all part of and that Doug and Bierce are kind of fighting their way through, but also the relationship between the monsters themselves, the creatures and Malik. What are their relation to him? Are they just minions that serve him mindlessly, or is there a deeper kind of relationship than that? Do they even have awareness of each other? Do they interact with each other? And that's what you'll see a lot of in chapter 5. You saw a little bit of it in chapter 4, where you saw the Gold Watchers hanging out in Torment Therapy's hospital, just sipping tea in the lobby. you'll see a lot more of those kind of interactions between the um, the nightmares in Dark Deception. You'll see them hate each other. You'll see them support each other. You'll actually see they have opinions of each other. That they're not all just blind loyalists to Malik. They actually are even a little bit competitive with each other. And some of them uh, kind of even have like an adoration for others within that army. So they do have like they're not all mindless. Some of them they do have personalities and emotions that go beyond their level and beyond just Malik. So that I think that's the big difference you'll see in chapter 5 is that it really brings all of their character to the surface and develops it more. So they're not just one-dimensional enemies. Maybe just the murder monkey is very one-dimensional because that essentially is his personality, is that he is just a mindless murder monkey. So, but the others, yeah, you'll get to see a lot more. I would say the Watchers are also kind of mindless. Let's see, Automazora threw in 2. Oops, sorry, jumped ahead. Sorry, threw in 2. Okay, look out, a murder monkey is behind you. I've got 2. How many murder monkeys are back there? Just 2. I thought I had 3. I guess not. Maybe later we can make a mecha murder monkey plushie or action figure or something. That'd be cool. Oh, and one thing I didn't talk about at the beginning when I was kind of updating on everything is our merchandise. So I'll kind of do that at the end. I'll give you a quick update on the merch that's coming because I've had a lot of questions about everything merch related and what our plans are for that. So I'll share that with you all. And that's kind of our own merch and our partner merch with people like U2s and Makeship and stuff like that. So when I'm done with the super chats and the member chat, then I will kind of give a quick update on that as well. Alp threw in 5,001. Thank you, Alp. 3 questions about OST. 1, can we hear Tammy's lullaby with lyrics in game? In Dark Deception, yes. 2, will the ending credit OST have lyrics? Yes. 3, do SDD OSTs have no lyrics? Also correct. So with Super Dark Deception, we're not using any music that has lyrics because we want to keep it MIDI and kind of true to that Super Nintendo era. That's why we're kind of redoing all the tracks to be MIDI versions. So yeah, there won't be any vocals or lyrics with any of the Super Dark Deception tracks. They're just going to be crunchy little retro versions for everything. But they still sound great. I mean, it has that style has a certain charm to it that just never ages. So each soundtrack will be very unique. Jay the Gamer threw another 5. Is the reveal shard bug for Crazy Carnival fixed? Excuse me. Is Dark Star an animatronic like the Joy Joy Gang or a robot from Terminator? Okay, question 1. As far as the reveal shard bug for Crazy Carnival fixed, yes, we fixed that bug. There's a laundry list of the chapter 4 bugs that people mentioned a long time ago that we've fixed years ago. We just haven't released it for the exact same reason that happened with Super Dark Deception. We can't separate the chapter 5 content from the build and people will data mine it. So we can't release it until chapter 5 is done. Dark Star an animatronic? No, she's not. She's very complex, but she is definitely not just she's not like the Joy Joy Gang. She's not just an exoskeleton or an animatronic. Oh, and her and Lucky do not get along. We'll put it that way. Automazora threw in 2. How hard was it to make a SDD level? How to make one? Okay, so Super Dark Deception levels are... I mean, the complexity varies. With pixel art, it can be faster. I think the Monkey Business level was very fast to make. It doesn't have quite as much detail, except for like the paintings. The paintings have a bit of detail, and that was a little bit more time consuming. Versus something like Mascot Mayhem, which has a ton of detail, and then taking that detail in 3D and translating it down to 2D pixels. One, you have to compromise a lot and sacrifice a lot of that detail to make it work, but then it can look really nice that way because it kind of minimalizes everything and cuts out a lot of the clutter. So something like Mascot Mayhem with 3 zones can take 2 months to make versus Monkey Business, which took like a week and a half. So yeah, Pixel still has a time requirement to making the assets. The levels are not what I would say easy to make, so it does still take time, even though it's not 3D. Let's see, Loaf of Brie threw in another 2. Any Chapter 5 characters larger than Goliath Clown or the Watcher or Titan Watcher? I guess size-wise, Titan Watcher is the biggest character in the game in Super Dark Deception. As far as like having an actual boss sprite that runs around on screen, up to Chapter 2, I would say Matron. Is her sprite the biggest? Matron's sprite? It would be kind of a contest between Joykill and Matron as far as having the biggest sprite. So I think a sprite for Doug, if I remember correctly, it's like 20 by 20 pixels or maybe 36. No, he's 40. So, okay, he's about 40 by 60 pixels, whereas a boss sprite can be anywhere from like 150 to 200. So they're about, what, 4 to 5 times the size of Doug's sprite. So it would be between those two. Chapter 3 does add some really big characters as well. But I don't think they're any bigger, because if they're any bigger than that, they would go off screen. They wouldn't be able to fit them on the screen. Because we're using kind of the old Super NES aspect ratio, it kind of limits how big they can get. Okay, we got 5 from Sans Lolk. How much will the DD headset cost that you're wearing live right now? The DD games can't wait for Chapter 5. This is actually the only one in existence right now. I had 2, but my young son broke one of them by accident. So I've got this one left. And this will actually, if anyone hasn't seen it yet, I'll kind of show you real quick. I've got Joy Joy Gang on it and Murder Monkey, because these are basically magnetic plates that you can take off. Well, I can't do it right now. Let me see. I don't want it to go flying. So you can take these off and swap them pretty easily, and it will just stay on. And the sound quality on these are really good. They're made by XPG. That's why you see Mara in the game. XPG is one of our partners for making some Dark Deception merchandise, hardware stuff. So the first thing we're making with them are headphones, but we're not going to release these until Chapter 5 releases, because we want to time it to a point to kind of a moment when it's more hyped up and it's relevant again to release something that costs as much as a headset. So the headsets are going to be between $50 to $60. We haven't determined that yet. We're still looking at the manufacturing costs and the shipping and all of that. So we have to kind of plan all that out. But as far as headsets go, that's pretty cheap. Like most headsets are $100 or more in US dollars. I know I have some people, we have a lot of fans from all over the world. But I'm in Taiwan and I go all over Asia. So what I see them charging for the headsets pretty much the same as what they charge in the US. So it doesn't seem like they adjust the pricing by country. That's mostly like digital games. So we're going to sell these on our Glowstick Entertainment store when Chapter 5 launches, and that's where you'll be able to buy it, and we'll ship it from here. And these are all made in Taiwan. So yeah, it's not too far away, but yes, these are still going to get made. We are still going to sell these headphones. Just not yet. Let's see, we've got another 2 from Autumn Azure. Says, When I'm making my game, can we talk? How? If you're making a game and you have some questions and you feel like I could answer something to help you out, I'd be happy to do so. Just send it to, um, what's the best email for that? I guess you could send it to our publishing email. If you look at our website, there's one called partnerships at Gmail or glowstickentertainment.com. It's more likely, well, since it's game related, send it there. Like, please don't email to that email if you're not showing us something game related, like you're working on a game or you want to publish a game. That's only for that. If you send us like Q&A questions, they're just going to get deleted. They won't get read because we have to keep that related only to game partnerships, stuff for like DLCs, fan games, that kind of stuff. Contact at Glowstick Entertainment gets a lot more messages every day. So if you send it there, I'll still see it, but it's more likely to kind of get buried below all the Q&A stuff and kind of mountain of unsolicited service emails I get every day from service providers. So yeah, whenever you're ready, just send it there. Or you can always just tag me in a message on Twitter. That's also easy. If you tag my name or Glowstick Entertainment, there's a good chance I may see it because I'm on Twitter a lot. That's about it. Yeah, hopefully I can help you out a bit. We'll see. $5 from an honest fan. How many more Monsters and Mortals DLCs do you think can happen before the game is finished? Well, I mean, my rule with Monsters and Mortals is that I'll support it as long as the community does. So when the community stops supporting it, stops buying the DLCs, stops caring about the game, then that'll be pretty much when I announce that the game's done. So right now, the game lives as long as the community wants it to be alive. That's pretty much the rule of Monsters and Mortals, because we could shut Monsters and Mortals down anytime after we deliver the Piggy and Doors DLC. We don't have to keep that game going forever. We could just be like, okay, this game is done. It's got all the content it needs. You know, after we update the base game to a point that we're happy with. Then we could just be like, all right, that's content complete. This is Monsters and Mortals 1. And it's a complete game. Because we never intended for Monsters and Mortals to be a live service, like Dead by Daylight. It was more supposed to be like Smash Brothers. Like every console has a version of Smash Brothers. We kind of wanted to do that with Monsters and Mortals. Just like Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat 1, 2, 3, 4. Same thing for Monsters and Mortals. We eventually want to move on to Monsters and Mortals 2, or whatever its name would be. But as long as people keep supporting Monsters and Mortals 1, we'll call it that for now, this first Monsters and Mortals game, then we'll keep adding content to it. We'll keep supporting it for as long as that happens. But when it falls below a point where it's not profitable and we're losing money, keeping it alive and developing additional content for it, that's when we'll kind of put a cap on it and say, hey, this is the first game. See, Tony BG threw in another 5. Thank you. Can you tell us more about the NPCs that you can interact with? Unfortunately, I've said all I can say for that. They are prisoners. Well, the ones I was referring to on Twitter are prisoners in Prison Panic. But that's all I can say about that. I can't spoil anything. But thank you for the super chat. Adam Zor threw another 2. Does Darkstar attack you or by using minions? I can't say anything about enemy behavior in Chapter 5. Sorry about that. But thank you for donating again. Alp through... Oh, YouTube did the jump. One sec. Oh, that's a big jump. I was in the middle of reading a question and then YouTube just jumped me like 3 pages in the super chat. Okay, I'm back. So Out put in 2001 and asks, which is the S rank hidden level, 12th or 13th? The S rank level is Wicked Ways. So the only way you will see Wicked Ways is if you have collected all S ranks and all E notes. Kelvin1228 threw in Hong Kong 15. Thank you, Kelvin. Was Malik a human before he became a demon? No, he's always a demon. It's okay to say that because it's not part of the story, so it's fine. Unicat Ninjas threw in another 5. Says, so I woke up late and I realized I had to be at the live stream, so I threw out this crud ugly but out outfit and flattened my hair with my heator. Ah, okay. Ain't I? Oh man, it's way too late for me to read all of this. Oh, attractive. Okay. I don't know why that last word was getting me so bad. It's like caffeine's not kicking in as fast as I need it. I'm going to assume that's a yes, and that you're much earlier in the day than I am. But thanks for tuning in. I'm glad you're here, and thanks for giving another donation for the super chat. Let's see. Crophonic threw in 3. Thank you, Crophonic. Somehow, in my opinion, SDD kind of works better than DD. I think I've heard both sides of that argument. Some people say SDD doesn't work as well as DD, and then some people say it works better. I think it really just comes down to your preference, like what kind of game you like to play. I don't think there should be any argument about 2D versus 3D just because they're both their own thing and they're both beautiful. I mean, 2D is just timeless art. Pixel games don't age. They look as great today as they do 10 years from now, as they will. I can go back and play 2D games from, you know, Super Nintendo or the NES era, and you know, besides the obvious pre-HD, pre-1080p, then the aspect ratio being old school and really outdated, the art itself still looks great. 3D ages badly. I mean, if you take like a lot of people like that old PlayStation 1 look, but a lot of the PlayStation 1 games just look like trash. They look terrible. They did not age well. A lot of PS2 games didn't age well. A lot of N64 games didn't age well. PS2, every system, I mean, 3D just ages fast. But I mean, a beautiful 3D game, when it comes out, looks amazing, and pretty much anything in Unreal Engine 5 looks amazing. So I appreciate them both. I really hope everyone in our community can appreciate 2D and 3D because there's amazing games in both. And to kind of stick your nose up at one of them, you're just cheating yourself. I mean, that's some amazing games you're going to miss out on because you only see one thing. So appreciate them both for what their strengths are. I mean, they both have strengths and weaknesses. They both bring something different to the table. So yeah, in some ways, Super Dark Deception or Dark Deception does work better in Super Dark Deception. And in many ways, Dark Deception does Dark Deception better than Super Dark Deception. Say that 5 times fast. That's a tongue twister there. Yeah, I mean, like many people have mentioned, like the directional sound in 3D just works so much better than in 2D. Whereas in 2D, it just, in my opinion, I like that top-down perspective. For me, that just reminds me of like classic Pac-Man, and it feels great to kind of run around the maze that way. Those are just very different approaches to the same game. That's what was kind of the point. There's a lot of people who can't play 3D. It makes them feel nauseous and have motion sickness. So the 2D version for, I'm not going to say that again. Did not intend to say it that way. 2D sounds like, or it just works much better for them. It's much more comfortable. So for a lot of people, Super Dark Deception is their first Dark Deception. They've never played the 3D version because they avoid 3D games simply because they don't like it or because it makes them feel sick. So there's a lot of people who are pretty much like not 2D only, but that's the majority of their games. So Super Dark Deception was just a way to introduce more fans, more gamers to the Dark Deception story. That's all it is. It just kind of expands And it gives us the opportunity to experiment and do fun little things that we could never do with Dark Deception. And vice versa. Sea Dog threw in 2. Thank you, Sea Dog. Hi Vince, is Malik going to appear in HH? Malik's always around in some way, either in spirit with his delegation, the way he kind of bosses his minions around, or just the man makes an appearance himself. He's very busy. You know, being the boss is tough. He's got a schedule. He can't chase after Doug all the time. That's why he has employees. Dude's running a major corporation in hell. Loaf of Brie threw in 5. Thank you, Loaf. Again, how much fear is in Malik's Fortress? Would you consider the way I'm asking this question to be wicked? I would say there's quite a bit of fear in Fear Fortress, and the forecast is going to be even worse when Doug arrives. Fear Fortress is probably the biggest level in the entire game of Dark Deception, easily. And the majority, I would say not the majority, but a large chunk of Chapter 5's gameplay time is going to happen in Fear Fortress, and it's also kind of the climactic moment in many ways. So a lot of stuff goes down in Fear Fortress with a lot of different characters. So it will not be a short. It's definitely kind of like running the gauntlet a bit. And I hope people will like that level. We put a lot of time into that level as far as like the design and look and what goes on there. So hopefully that will be people's favorite level, but we'll see. I think all the levels are really cool, but we'll see if that one's kind of like the fan favorite. Let's see. Another 5 from Default, or oh, I can't read that one. I'll just call them D Games. D Games threw in 5 euros. Thank you, D Games. Which level in Chapter 5 has the most soundtracks? Probably, oh, that's tough. I would say Fear Fortress, just because it's the longest level. I was going to say Prison Panic for a minute, but yeah, I think Fear Fortress beats it by a few tracks. Let's see, Mamma Mia Pizzeria threw in 5. Will any of the Dark Deception plushie come back for Chapter 5? Well, yeah, we have 2 of them behind us. You can see Puppet King and Dark Star. Dark Star is actually going to be on sale pretty soon, kind of like FNAF sold Security Breach stuff before Security Breach dropped, and so did Bendy with the Bendy and the Dark Revival things put onto their store in Chapter 3 of Poppy Playtime. We're gonna drop merch for one of our characters, and we just kind of decided on Dark Star. So we'll sell the Dark Star plushie this Halloween with Makeshift. They're doing a big Menace campaign, and Dark Star is going to be part of that. So if anyone wants to get hyped about Chapter 5 and have something on their desk or at their home or wherever they want to put it, that's like the first Chapter 5 official merchandise, that'll be it. The Dark Star plushie. We'll probably do more plushies around the time Chapter 5 releases, like other characters that I'm not able to show. But those will come after Dark Star. And no, Puppet King will not be part of that. So Puppet King will probably go out at the same time as Chapter 5 to kind of celebrate that release. We'll do probably like a cool lineup of plushies for Chapter 5. Whoops, did it jump again? Oh no, okay. Autumn Azure threw in 2. How difficult are level OSTs to make? Super Dark Deception and Dark Deception. Well, I mean, thankfully, we have a really talented composer team working with us. I mean, Dan is a master. Dan's been doing all the Dark Deception tracks since the beginning, except for the Murder Monkey tracks. 2 of them were done by Chris Pinkston, but after that, Dan kind of took over, and it's just been all him the entire way. So Dan, because he's a master, he gets things done a lot faster, and that can maybe make it look pretty easy, but it's not. It's just he's so damn good at what he does that things get done a lot faster with him. We also have a really talented team on Super Dark Deception that are basically taking Dan's Dark Deception tracks and trans or converting them into MIDI versions. So um, some of them, they've been active on Twitter. They've kind of introduced themselves. Major Bruno, Nathan Hanover, and Mad Brain. So they've all done outstanding jobs on their tracks that they've been given. I usually tag each Super Dark Deception track that I upload with the composer's name, so you know which ones are by who. So Dan only did one track for Super Dark Deception, and that's the main theme that you hear playing at the main menu in the title screen. So that's the one track Dan did for Super Dark Deception, but the rest are done entirely by this new team of composers that are working with us, and that's kind of their specialty is they do this type of music. So all of them, they spend a few days on each track. Once they have everything they need from me, uh, my role with them is mostly as kind of a director. So I will just go in and tell them if something's off with the melody. Me and Dan have kind of good rapport that way. So we kind of work together on the track. Most of the time, he doesn't need my help at all. But every now and then, we'll run into something that Dan really, it's not really like his comfort zone, like a lot of the holiday horror stuff, because Dan's not used to doing cheerful music. So he was really struggling with like Christmas jingles. So that's one where I had to kind of come in and direct it and be like, this sounds good. Let's make like that. And I would kind of edit the soundtrack myself for some of the things that we've done. There was a particular trailer track that we're going to use, maybe, for Chapter 5 that I basically edited together to kind of get it over the finish line, and that became the final track. So we almost worked 50-50 on that one, but that's like the only one. Everything else is all Dan. But yeah, it's really cool kind of being involved on the music side of things. It's not something I usually get to help out with too much. Um, so yeah, I've learned a lot from those guys. They're really good at what they do. Grandom Rye threw in another 5. Thank you, Grandom, again. I know they're not canon to Dark Deception, but if Agatha met the Alphabet Coalition from Monsters and Mortals, would they get along or not? Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why they're in Monsters and Mortals. She would absolutely use education to terrorize her friends in her school. Um, because in Agatha's school, everything would be used to torment the children, from the classroom to the education to even whatever plays over the intercom. It would all be part of the pain session that she wants to deliver to them. So for Doug, she would just chase them around and try to kill him. For her guests that stay trapped in those classrooms, she probably wants to do something that lasts a bit longer and she can really savor the suffering in those rooms. That's just kind of how she is. All right. Autumn Azure threw in 2. Can you say anything about Doug's monster form? I don't know what that relates to. When did I say Doug has a monster form, or I said Doug is a monster? Maybe somebody took that literally. Oh, I think they're referring to the image that I used on a lot of those tracks, including Tammy's Lullaby, where you see Doug with the big hands kind of holding her. That's kind of like a manifestation of his personality in some ways, as you kind of see a bit more about his past. I can't really talk about that too much. Obviously, that's spoiler territory. But I think at least Chapter 5 will answer that question for you as far as what that form is. Is it part of the game, or is it just a cool image I put up on the music track to get your attention? I don't know. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I can say that much. Unicat Ninjas threw in another 5. Vader Gamer asks, are there alternate ways to unlock frenzy modes in Super Dark Deception? I can see how that would be a problem right now with the bugs, because you need S rank to unlock the frenzy costumes or skins inside of Super Dark Deception. I think after the patch that won't be a problem anymore. It'll be a lot easier. I mean, it's still going to be a challenge, but it's be a lot easier to get S ranks. And if you really want to cut corners, just play on easy mode. You get S ranks in easy mode too, and that also counts. So you'll unlock all the skins pretty easily. But you won't get the main ending for the story in Chapter 3. Unless you get... I mean, you can still do S ranks on easy mode, but you have to have data for S ranks on normal mode at least to unlock the true ending. Let's see. Rooney Nico threw in £2. Thank you, Rooney. Have you changed the S rank requirements in Super Dark Deception? Yes, we have. I think it's throwing me off because they're typing SSD, which makes me think of solid state drives instead of SDD, like Super Dark Deception. Some guys on my team do that too. They get kind of confused with that, which confuses me. All right. Well, yes, we did. I did go back and rebalance all of those. I felt some of the time requirements needed adjusted. I also adjusted the death values on some of the levels as to what's required for S rank. The main one I adjusted were the time requirements. I'm trying to think what else I adjusted on that besides that. I think shard count. The shard streak got adjusted for a couple of them. Deaths, same thing, a couple levels. Secrets and folders, or the secrets and the bonus shard, those are the same because obviously I can't change those. It's always the same kind of number per zone, per level. So it's mainly the time requirements and the death requirements, and just a couple of them, it's the shard streak. So it's a little bit less punishing now. It's a little bit easier to get those S ranks, but it's still a challenge. It's just not such a Dark Souls level challenge, you know. Because I saw a lot of people are losing the S rank to the time requirement. Even without the bug that made all of the time requirements the same as Monkey Business, it was still a little bit like a razor thin margin of error for each level to get S rank. And Super Dark Deception is supposed to be more accessible and friendly for everybody. That one is not supposed to be such a brutal challenge as Dark Deception is. Since Dark Deception is more serious, it makes sense to make it more challenging. But I did see a lot of people really appreciated the unintentional challenge level. Like a lot of people were telling me that they loved the challenge and that it felt a lot better in 2D that way. Like they really enjoyed it, and they still managed to get S rank. I couldn't get a lot of the levels. I got a couple S ranks, but I got A in most of them because I kept dying one time too many. But they were able to S rank it even with that challenge level. So we took that, made it the hard mode, and then tweaked it up a little bit more just to see how much they hate themselves if they want to go for it again. And now normal is a lot more accessible. So I think normal, and then for people who still think normal is too hard, we have easy mode, which is basically a cakewalk. I mean, they don't quite sit there and cheer for you and watch you, like walk you to the ring piece, but there's usually only 2 enemies in the level, and they move very slow. They're not that aggressive. You'd basically have to kill yourself to die, or just stand still. Same thing. So easy mode is basically for people who just want to see the story. Like they don't care so much about the gameplay. They just want to run around, have fun, and see the next thing. That's the mode to play. So once that's out, I don't want to hear anybody say the game is too hard because the easy mode is there. And it gets its own special unique ending. It's going to be exclusive to easy mode. It's just it won't be the true canon ending for, you know, Dark Deception. Mr. Puzzles threw in £2. Thank you, Mr. Puzzles. Oh, I'll read this. I skipped one by accident. I'll go back to it. Will there be more U2s coming soon? Yes. But we're not sure if it's going to be a vinyl figure or U2s does plushies now or some other merchandise. But yes, we still have a partnership with U2s. And I've been kind of talking to them about doing Chapter 5 merchandise. We just haven't really decided what type to do yet. So at some point, we'll nail that down and put it out with Chapter Five's launch. Okay, so the person I skipped over was Shayla. She threw in 2 Canadian. Thank you, Shayla. What kind of soul type would Dark Star represent? Well, that one's part of the story, so I can't answer that. But if you search around and find the lore notes inside of Dark Deception or inside of Prison Panic and you find the E note, then that will answer your question for you once that's out. Adam Azura threw in another 5. Thank you again. For someone making a fan game, which is easier to make in your opinion, Dark Deception or Super Dark Deception? I want to know which form my game should take and which is easier. Well, I mean, if you're going to do Super Dark Deception, you probably need to be fairly good at making pixel art. So if you have a sprite and you know how to do pixel art, you understand, the sizing of the sprites, how to set up a sprite and animate it, you're good with pixel art, then you can probably do that. And you don't even need to make it a playable game. You could just do, I've seen several guys on Twitter just do pixel animations. But if you're doing like a full playable game, and you have some skill with pixel art, or you know somebody who can join your team to do that, then yeah, you can do Super Dark Deception. Or you can just wait, and when the game's big enough, we can add a level editor, and you can just use that and make your own levels. So that's one option. And then Dark Deception, I mean, that's where most of our fan games are right now, is people do fan games of Dark Deception. Because they can use any 3D engine. They can do Unreal, they can do Unity, Godot, whatever their preference is. And all they have to know how to do is 3D modeling, which is pretty easy to pick up, as well as like the rigging and the animation. It's just a bit more time consuming if you want it to look really good. So, depends on you. I mean, you can always put out something that doesn't look that good. I mean, it's more about the gameplay. If the gameplay is fun, the visuals don't need to be AAA or anything. So 3D, I guess, is a bit more flexible. Unicat Ninjas threw in another 5. Larry and Fuzz ask, why are easy and normal mode for Chapter 4 levels virtually the same? Is it a bug? No, it's a balancing issue. So if you're talking about, you're talking about Chapter 4 for Dark Deception, those difficulty modes were thrown in with very minor tweaks to the characters or the enemy's stats. So they probably, to some people, may seem almost the same because the difference isn't great enough to make them like immediately noticeably different from one another. So that's something we basically gutted and redid entirely from the ground up with Chapter 5. So the current difficulty system that's in the existing public release of Chapter 4 is going to be replaced. So, do what you can with it now. When Chapter 5 goes out, it's going to be replaced by the new system, which is a lot more similar to Super Dark Deceptions that you'll see with the new patch. It actually does change things a lot for each difficulty mode. It's not just enemy stat tweaks. Autumn Azura threw in another 2. What resources does someone need to make a Dark Deception game? As far as resources go, it depends on what your skill set is. So, I mean, if you want to make a Dark Deception game, are you an artist or a programmer? Do you have that skill set? If you're a one-man band and you can do everything, then you're set. If you have the experience and the knowledge to get started, then you can start making a game like Dark Deception yourself right away because you know how to do all of the individual parts that are required to make that game. If you're an artist and you don't know how to program, then obviously you need to team up with a programmer. So you will need to bring somebody else onto your team that can do that and handle that for you. And vice versa, if you're a programmer and you know nothing about design or animation or modeling or any of that, then you need to team up with an artist that can do all of those things. Or some cases, they may not be able to do all of them. They may just be able to do one of those things, and then you need to team up with like 2 or 3 artists to cover everything. That's better, because otherwise, the main resource you need to make a Dark Deception game, if you don't have any of those skills, is money, because then you have to pay people to do it for you. And that can get really expensive really fast, like hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's not cheap. Um, that's if you want to make a game like Dark Deception. You can always go much simpler than Dark Deception. Um, just the mechanics of Pac-Man alone are easy to implement in both 2D and 3D. So you could do something more on scale with a mobile game, like doesn't need top visuals, doesn't need really in-depth like gameplay mechanics that require like research and development to get it working right. Something that's already kind of tried and true, and maybe they even have a plug-in on an asset store that you could just buy and customize or something. That's like an easy way to get your feet wet and just get something functional without having to hire like a big team. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie and tell you something like this is easy to make. It's not. It takes a lot of people, a lot of time, and a lot of skill sets. I'm kind of like the stopgap guy on my team. I was trained to do a lot of different things, so I'm kind of like the Swiss Army knife on the team in that I have many skill sets. A lot of people don't educate themselves that way or are not trained that way now. They're more trained to specialize in one thing. So they'll know animation really well, or they'll know modeling really well, or they'll know programming. I guess when I was going through education, they kind of forced us to learn everything at once. So I kind of picked up a lot of those skills, and at first it was just kind of like, could do everything fairly well, but nothing great, except for maybe one or two things. And then over time, working in the game industry and being forced to do the job of 6 people so that they could just pay one, I got a lot better at all those other skill sets. That helps save me a lot of money on development costs because I can step in and do the job of like even now, like with Dark Deception and Super Dark Deception, there's a lot of things our programmers couldn't do. And I either have to go hire another programmer who just does that thing, or I teach myself. So I went and taught myself to do it, and I did the programmer's job for some of these things. Something I never thought I would do, programming, but now I can do some I'm almost like a full programmer now that I keep doing all these programming tasks. So that's like a great mindset to have, is if you don't look for somebody else to do all your work for you, and if you're willing to learn, you can slowly get better and become the one-man band if you need to be. There's a lot of developers that do that. I mean, what was it? The guy who did Stardew Valley is basically a one-man band. He did that. It took him 7 years, but he did that game by himself. So it really comes down to what are you willing to do to make a game. So you either got to team up with people, or you got to get a lot of money, or you need to train yourself in a lot of different disciplines that are required. It's up to you. Or you can use the asset store to buy a lot of stuff and cut corners that way, but then everyone's going to recognize the assets just because everybody buys those popular assets. When they play your game, they're going to be like, oh yeah, there's a Daikogan asset, and I know that environment world set. It's just kind of like that. But I mean, if the game is fun, then it won't matter. Kelvin threw in Hong Kong 15. Thank you, Kelvin. Are Puppet King and Darkstar loyal to Malik? I think all of the enemies that you encounter are loyal to Malik for some reason. They all have a different motive for being loyal to Malik, but they all do have a motive. So you'll kind of find out more in Chapter 5 what motivates them and why they are there to confront Doug on Malik's behalf and what they're getting out of it. So it's not always blind obedience. I mean, ultimately, none of them have a choice, but they still all have their reason for doing it, and they're not all mindless. Something like the murder monkey is mindless. It obeys because that's what it was created to do. So yeah, I'm not going to delve too deep into that, but you can kind of see maybe from what I've said where Chapter 5 is going and what you can expect. Tony BG threw another 10. Thank you, Tony. Can you tell us more about the 2 new powers My prediction is self-cloning and jumping. No, I cannot tell you about the powers, but they are... Let me see what you said here. Self-cloning and jumping. The power to jump. Making me feel guilty now. Maybe that'll be in Dark Deception's sequel. The power to jump. No, I almost... Self-cloning... Kinda. It gets close, but it's not quite right. Almost there for one of them. Alex Dobson, 320. Wow, thank you, Alex. Hi, just want to ask what trap will be in Holiday Horror. Just one of them, please, because I have no idea what they are. Then I thought of the laser from Torment Therapy. Well, it's definitely not a laser. I can tell you that much. There is a trap, but if I tell you what it is, it gives away a big part of the game because it's an organic trap. So I can't say what it is. That's all I can. That's the only hint I can give you. Unicat Ninjas threw in 5 again. Thank you. Sorry I couldn't save the apartment from the fire that came in all crubby yo. I'm literally reading this word for word. But it wasn't even a good looking fire. It was probably rusty and burnt. And it burnt down chapter 5. It burnt chapter 5 down. I need some coffee after reading that. Unicat, what are you doing right now? Please don't burn down your home. Not even for chapter 5. And according to some people on YouTube, there's nothing to burn down for chapter 5. It's vaporware. Let's see. Random Timberwolf. What would you say is the favorite candy of each Dark Deception character? Favorite candy? That is definitely something that requires some thought. Well, let me think. Are we talking... I mean, with the murder monkeys, I feel like they would just interpret real-world objects as candy, and because they're not very intelligent, I mean, they would just munch on nails and think it's candy. Like, it wouldn't actually be candy. It would just be something from the environment that they think is fun to chew on. So they're not a great example. Agatha would definitely just like sweets, traditional stuff, something like jelly beans, or because, you know, she's from originally from a simpler time when they still had like jawbreakers and jelly beans and hard sugar candies. That's probably what she would subconsciously reenact and be used to, because, you know, if you follow Dark Deception's story, Agatha is kind of a reincarnation of, or a shadow of, the maid's daughter from Bierce's timeline, which was like the early 1930s, or kind of like the early 1930s. So, you know, the candy wasn't... They actually did have some good candy back then, because I actually did some research on that. I think they had Mars bars and stuff, but, you know, most of their candy was really different from what it is now. Gold Watchers don't eat anything. They just chew gold. They'd probably just munch on anything that's gold. Maybe, let me think. Well, that's a long one. I'm probably going to drag that out too long, so... That's like a whole night of reflection in itself, just to figure out the candy for each character. So, if any fans want to address that and put a list of what they think the Dark Deception characters would eat for candy, it can be existing real-world candy or just something you make up. Go for it. I would love to agree or disagree with it, or just kind of use that to form my own list. 3:30 a.m. is not a good time to get me thinking about the candy. Adam Azura threw in 2. Is Puppet King arrogant and Darkstar vain? Well, I'm not going to give away their personalities yet, because that is a big part of what happens in Chapter 5. I will just say their personalities are very obvious from the moment you meet them. Although maybe Puppet King takes a little time to see it, just because of the way events play out early on in the level. It's not really in your face and as much until later. But Darkstar is very in your face from the beginning once you meet her. So I cannot confirm or deny what you've just said. Unicat Ninjas for another 10. The Guy Lord asks, why does DD Titan Watcher not have the stone skin he does in SDD? And M&M, or Monsters and Mortals. Also, in terms of mechanics and programming, which Dark Deception boss was the hardest to implement? That is correct. If you've seen the Titan Watcher in Dark Deception, he actually uses an old marble texture for his skin, whereas Super Dark Deception and Monsters and Mortals use kind of more of a concrete stone texture, kind of like you would see in the I guess the planters outside in the courtyard and some of the fountains. It's more of a similar material to that. I think with Dark Deception, we originally went with that marble and we didn't change it because it looked better in the lighting. It was easier to see than the one we used in Monsters and Mortals, which was a little bit darker. So Monsters and Mortals, of course, influenced Dark Deception. It was a transplant from Monsters and Mortals to Dark Deception because we created the Titan Watcher purely for Monsters and Mortals at first. But then later, we liked the character so much, we added it into Dark Deception just to kind of give, especially as we started adding bosses to Dark Deception's later levels, we felt like we should have gone back and added them into the first 4 levels. Or the first 3 levels. The first bosses appeared in Chapter 3 with Stranger Sewers and Crazy Carnival. So, that was just an attempt to make him easier to see in the lighting with the Dark Deception. That's the only reason. And as far as mechanics and programming, which Dark Deception boss was the hardest? Probably Joykill, just because he's the only one that jumps around. And getting him to land right and behave right while constantly jumping across the room was a little tricky, and it had a lot of bugs at first. I think the second hardest would probably be not the matron. Probably it would be Mama Bear. Yeah, Mama Bear would be second. All right, let me see. Unicat Ninjas through another 10. Red asks, is there a difference between Frenzy and Nightmare Mode in Super Dark Deception? Why do the clowns and all Chapter 4 characters go into Frenzy Mode before the ring piece? 3. Update on the AAA DLC for Dark Deception Chapter 5. Okay, 1. We'll just start with that one. Is there a difference between Frenzy and Nightmare Mode in Super Dark Deception? No, it's just Nightmare Mode. So, they're pretty much the same. In Super Dark Deception, we just call them all Nightmare Mode. 2, why do the clowns and all Chapter 4 characters go into Frenzy Mode before the ring piece? Oh, that one was kind of an experiment. That's like an inconsistency in the design. Whereas for level 5, for Crazy Carnival, because we wanted that whole area to be fluorescent, to kind of have that glow-in-the-dark carnival feel, we wanted to make the clowns that way as well. So we changed their skin, even though they weren't technically in Nightmare Mode yet. But early on in Dark Deception, we called it Frenzy Mode. We've kind of switched that terminology to Nightmare Mode since it's Nightmare Realms. That's just kind of like their more aggressive mode. So that was just kind of like a second alternate skin for the clowns in the Crazy Carnival level. It's not actually their Nightmare Mode skin, which doesn't come out until after you collect the ring piece. So that one was just kind of a bonus form or look skin for the clown gremlins. 3. Update on the AAA DLC for Dark Deception Chapter 5. Oh, yeah, we did announce previously, or I did a share, that I was working on a AAA DLC for Dark Deception. We are still doing that, but we're kind of re-examining if Dark Deception's something we want to put licensed DLC into, just because we're not quite sure it feels right. Whereas for Super Dark Deception, it feels fine. It works really well. And same for Monsters and Mortals. We don't want to take anything away from the story in Dark Deception and what it builds up to by slapping in some unrelated world that doesn't really fit in. So we were pretty excited about the AAA, and we're still not quite, we haven't quite removed it from the table. We're still considering it, but it's definitely in kind of a limbo state right now, whether we're going to actually go forward with it and use it, or if we're just going to kind of take that one off the table and keep Dark Deception, purely the Dark Deception story and any Dark Deception related expansion stories as DLC. You know, not everything needs to have licensed content. I'd rather do like an original side story that relates to the story, like maybe more exploration into East Journey or something like that. Or even a different character. Sam Horror Gamer threw in €5. Thank you, Sam. How similar would you say the environments of holiday horror fan game Chaotic Customer look to the actual level? Well, that one's very different. It has its own kind of, I saw some screenshots of that. It's a really cool fan game, but it's definitely got its own kind of vibe for its design. I mean, a mall is a mall. There's only so many ways you can make a mall look, but the style of that fan game is very different from the actual one. And I really like that it happened that way, because if I showed a screenshot of holiday horror, they would all have just copied it directly. This kind of forced them to be a little bit more creative with their fan games and actually use their own creativity to design something unique, which in the end is great for the Dark Deception community, because now even when holiday horror finally goes out in Chapter 5, it's going to be very different from the fan game, so they can experience that and they can go play in a completely different mall or a style of mall with something like Chaotic Customer or other cool fan games that kind of revolve around the mall. Because a lot of times the fan developers in the Dark Deception community, their only interest is to imitate what's coming. So they will, if they knew like Mascot Mayhem's coming, they all just make Mascot Mayhem levels. I really want to see the fan developers start to use their own creativity and make something unique and interesting for the Dark Deception community that's still, you know, it's non-canon, but it's set in the Dark Deception universe. It could be anything. That way the Dark Deception community can enjoy all these new, unique experiences, kind of like the FNAF community has, where, yeah, you know, they remake old versions of FNAF to do like a modern reimagining of it, but they'll also create these really cool stuff like Into the Pit, which is based on a book, or even with Nixon, like the Joy of Creation. So I wanted to get the FNAF or the Dark Deception fan community more on that mindset of, you know, they don't just need to create the next Dark Deception chapter in advance. They should be looking at the Dark Deception universe and the story and saying, what can I add to that? You know, what can I make that would be really cool and fit in there and make all the fans wish it was canon? So I'm hoping eventually a fan developer comes along that can do something like that. And that's why I've mentioned publishing a lot and making kind of a Dark Deception fanverse, is we're waiting for a game like that. Something that is new, it's original, it's unique, and it adds something to the Dark Deception universe, something unique that's we're not already doing. Because, I mean, if it's just like, you know, 10, 12 different versions of holiday horror, that's, once holiday horror is out, nobody's going to have any interest to play those anymore. So that's not really good for the community. We definitely want to see originality. So that's why I'm happy Chaotic Customer came out before I released screenshots, because it forced him to imagine his own version of the mall, which makes it unique. And I've seen a couple others that are also based on holiday horror, and they did kind of the same thing. So that's one reason I really don't want to show screenshots, is because it heavily influences our Dark Deception fan developers. Um, and I do like to see creativity from the Dark Deception community. Let's see, Radoof threw in €5. Thank you. Can you tell me when all bugs in Dark Deception will be fixed? Because at the moment, there are so many that the game is unplayable and only frustrating. Well, the level of bugs that you encounter in Dark Deception really depends on your hardware that you're running. It just is. The video card, some video cards and some rigs, some setups have a lot more bug issues than others do. There's a lot of people played through Dark Deception, have no issues, and enjoy it a lot. And there's other people that try to play through it and everything starts T-posing and breaking and they can't enjoy it at all, and it really is unplayable. So for those people, I would just say hold off until Chapter 5 goes out and fixes the bugs. But, you know, Chapter 5 is going to be even more intensive as far as system requirements. I mean, it's not going to be anything unobtainable, but it's going to be kind of the baseline for modern video cards and processors. You know, kind of the minimum to run Unreal Engine 5 well. So if you're trying to play it with hardware from 2012, I can't promise you the Chapter 5 fixes are going to make your life any easier with playing Dark Deception. In that case, if you know you can't update your PC, please get Dark Deception on the consoles. Or, well, hold off on mobile until I see more of it. Play it on the consoles, get it on PS5 or Xbox Series X, and you'll have no problems, no bugs, if you have one of those. If you have a Switch, well, wait for Switch 2. I would say that's the solution for anybody that has a bad computer that can't update to like the latest or something made within the last, you know, few years. Because I know how expensive computers are. So not everybody can just go drop, you know, $1,000, $2,000 to upgrade their PC. So in that case, a little $300 or, I mean, you can buy consoles used. Get a little $300 console is a lot more obtainable than a $2,000 laptop or PC. Or you can always get a Steam Deck, but I think that's more, right? What does a Steam Deck go for? Is it still $500? Well, there's a lot of different solutions, but yeah, the bugs are fixed, but it is still reliant on your hardware. And too many fans these days kind of parrot the word optimization and they don't understand what that actually means. They just hear like, oh, this AAA company optimized the hell out of this game and now it'll run on anything. There's a lot of things they miss about that they don't understand with optimization. Optimization, it's pretty much all encompassing. So it can be your textures, your models, your UVs. I mean, every facet of the 3D assets, even the code can be optimized to be performance friendly, and that's all extremely time consuming. It usually requires alternate models that we can switch between to kind of keep things lower cost, levels of detail. And basically it's taking a high-res model and baking it down onto a low-poly model. That's just the 3D assets. There's a lot of other issues like lighting, materials. It's just incredibly time-consuming, incredibly expensive, and it's not always practical. And it requires a lot of manpower. So they always throw examples to me of AAA studios or a really successful indie studio that calls them indie, but they usually are very well off because they have to be, because that's the only way they can optimize these things to that degree. You can't take a UE5 game and optimize it down to run on a Switch very well. You know, maybe a really rich company can do that and throw millions of dollars at it and get it, work some black magic to get that to a state where it doesn't look horrible. We're three people. We're three people. We have a lot of work to do and only a limited amount of time and a very limited amount of resources. So we cannot optimize Dark Deception to run on your 12-year-old potato PC. We just can't. Sorry. That's just not going to happen. we got to cut things somewhere. Because I've had people lash out at me about that, and they have this really weird expectation for that, and I just want to kill that right away because it's so out of touch. It has to be corrected. Optimization is to cover hardware, usually within a span of like, I would say like 2 or 3 generations. You know, we're not going to cover decades back. It's just not feasible. So I would say if your hardware is like 2018, maybe 2017, then it should do okay. If it's before that, then you're kind of out of luck. Let me go to the next one. Oh, it did another jump. No. Okay, where was I? Okay, Automazora threw in 2. And which is the most dangerous monster besides Malik? Well, there's a dangerous. There's actually. No, God, that's a spoiler too. Jeez. Sorry, I'm trying to run through my head what I can actually say for this. I mean, they're all dangerous. There are some. There's a lot more threats in Chapter 5. I mean, outside of Malik, the most dangerous enemy will probably be... Even that's open to interpretation. I mean, it's down to like Darkstar and Puppet King, so... I think they're both pretty challenging in their own way. I wouldn't call either one of them more dangerous than the other. It's just a matter of which one scares you more as you play through it. Very different style, we'll put it that way. Unicat Ninjas says I went to... Oh, she threw in 5. Thank you, Unicat, again. It looks like your adventure continues. I went to Joy Land. Lucky hit me with a stick and then a sack of noodles, then started running around like a string bean man, and then he just left, bruh. 0 out of 10. Stay out of Joy Land. It's not going to be good for you. Felipe Shadow threw in 5 reals. Thank you, Felipe. Dark Deception Chapter 5 is complete. Oh, it's news to me. I wish it was. And Super Dark Deception Xbox launch. Okay. Well, I would put Dark Deception Chapter 5 will be complete. And yes, Super Dark Deception is coming to Xbox Series S, X, and Xbox One. So all Xbox will have Super Dark Deception. And that will be August 30th. That's the date we kind of have set right now. So yeah, August 30th. But of course, that is subject to change. Sam Horror Gamer threw in €2. Thank you, Sam. Would you consider Darkstar a stalker or pursuer? I cannot reveal the enemy behavior, so I can't say anything. You'll find out when Chapter 5 drops. But thank you again for the super chat. Appreciate it. Autumn Azure threw in 2. Thank you, Autumn. How many people do you hire to make a DD game? All on average, I would say, and this is not all at once, it's just total within the span of development, we usually work with about at least 20 people. So when you see the credits, you'll see at least probably for Chapter 5, since it's so big, we probably have about, I'd say about 20 to 30 names this time. So at a given time, we usually have about 8 people working with us, in addition to our 3-person team. That's kind of our contractor team that we work with. And they can do anything from programming to animation to modeling, or just making marketing stuff like the marketing video that we did with the trailer for Super Dark Deception with Crispy Boat that we just recently did, something like that. Not everything is like for the game development. Sometimes it's for something like that, as far as like a teaser or promotional thing. So they really are kind of like a diverse group. See, Unicant adjusts through another 5. Marshall asks, will BB Zone 2 be remastered in Dark Deception Enhanced Plus? Because it looks very different from the cave intro sequence. Are any Chapter 5 levels 100% done? Well, actually, all of the Dark Deception Enhanced levels, the first enhancement, are being, all the way up to level 8, Barely Buried, are being redone again to visually upgrade them in Unreal Engine 5. So they will all receive a visual boost and look better than they did, or than they do currently. Those are some Chapter 5 teasers I could share later, like the new look for the existing levels. That's fine. Once we're ready to share those. So yeah, that is kind of remastered a bit. It's not like a full remastering, but it's like a partial one, but it's enough to kind of give it a visual boost, especially with the lighting. And as far as Chapter 5 levels being 100% done, I can't share the progress, so I just tell everybody they're 100% done. But people take that literally, so that's just a joke. I'm not serious. They're not 100% done. Everything's still in progress. Shayla threw in another 2. Thank you, Shayla. Will Vanish ability play roles in boss fights? Let me think. For Chapter 5, some of the powers do play a role in the boss fights in Chapter 5, but Vanish is mostly for the maze zones. Autumn Azura threw another 2. Has any of your monsters given you nightmares? Well, I mean, at some point, all of them, I wouldn't say nightmare, but they were something that kind of consumed my thought for a bit, which is how they became one of the monsters in Dark Deception. Either just thinking about a phobia or something of that nature, or a dream. That's kind of where they all kind of originate from and motivate me to kind of add them to the game. As far as like a nightmare, I don't think any of them appeared in my nightmares literally. I actually have a book I keep where I write down most of my nightmares, if I have any, because it's so rare that I have a nightmare since these days. I think when I was a kid, I had nightmares a lot, but like as I got older, for some reason, the nightmares just kind of dried up. Instead, I just have like or maybe it's just I'm so desensitized to horror that it doesn't scare me like it did when I was a kid. So I'll have like horror dreams, but it's more like I'm just an observer or a traveler within that, and I observe it, but it doesn't actually like scare me awake or anything where I'm like covered in sweat and like, oh God, that's a horrible, like a horrifying dream. It does still happen, but it's very rare. And when it happens, I write it down. So I've got some really good ones that actually are kind of the inspiration for some future games. If once Dark Deception's done, that I really want to get to later. But they're on the shelf right now, so yeah, but not Dark Deception's monsters. They just didn't pop up that way. They were something that I consciously thought of rather than being, part of one of my dreams or a nightmare. Unicat Ninjas threw another 5. Vince, what happened to They Grow with the evil spaghetti monster? Oh, that one. I'm surprised you remember that. So yeah, the They Grow game, and I actually did cover this in a previous Q&A episode. I forget which one, but it was brought up. So They Grow was actually going to be the first game that we published as part of the Glowstick Entertainment label for publishing. But it was made by one guy, and that developer just fell behind and couldn't complete the game, and it didn't get done. It kind of got abandoned. So we couldn't publish it, so it got canceled. And then from there, that's how we picked up House, and House became our first published game, which worked better because I really like House, and House I think fits our audience a lot better. So, I mean, They Grow, I think it was a really good game jam demo, but it just didn't work as well as like a full game. And that's where that kind of struggle I think came in for the developer, was trying to realize that as a larger game. So that was kind of like I think a learning moment for us as a publisher as to what we should look for and what kind of games we should publish, was after They Grow, which is kind of a shame. I think that game could have been really cool if it would have been done right and completed. Oh well, I mean, it just happens that way sometimes. A person threw me too. Thank you, a person. Is Glowstick aiming for 2024 or 2025 for Chapter 5? Oh, you know better than to ask that. It's a secret. I can't say. I mean, the game is still intended for 2024, but it could go to 2025. Some people say it's going to launch in 2030. I don't want to like pin down any year and feel pressure. I mean, if I put 2030 and it slips to 2033, I'm going to get a lot of crap from the community. I don't want that. So I'm just going to wait and then shadow drop it on everybody when it's complete without a word, and just be like, hey, it's out. And that'll be it. That way I don't have to sweat like a launch date and worry about delays. Just going to shadow drop Chapter 5. That's like, it's like a lot of developers are doing now. I like the idea of that, just to drop Chapter 5 one day without saying anything. We'll see who notices it on the store first. Felipe Shadow threw in 2 reals. Will we have a boss fight with Lucky the Rabbit? Oh, for Chapter 5. Yeah, there is a fight with Lucky and the Joy Joy gang in Chapter 5. That one's not so secret because I dropped the Joy of Despair track, which pretty much is a boss track. So that's kind of the giveaway. So yeah, you will encounter the Joy Joy gang again, and you know, all of them. And yeah, there will be a boss fight. Let's see, Alp threw in another 5,000 won. Thank you, Alp. Are the Big Dad image and Darkstar on Steam page just concept art or in-game? 2. To see S rank ending, can we just get to S rank up to PP? No, so you have to, well, actually I should start with the first question before I jump to the second one. Okay. So yeah, those are both in-game images. That doesn't mean that those are moments from the game and those are screenshots of a moment in the game. It just means those are game models inside Unreal. Those were set up just to create those renders. They're not actually part of the game, but those are the game models. As far as like that Big Dad and the Darkstar. As far as like the Big Dad thing, that was made for that screenshot. I can already hear people like, oh, that's a boss fight. That's the model. No, it's for that screenshot. It's a marketing rendering image. So don't jump too much and read too much into that. As for the S rank ending, you do have to get the S rank in Fear Fortress as well. So it's not just up to Prison Panic. You have to get it at Fear Fortress. That way you have S ranked all the way right before Wicked Ways. Loaf of Brie threw in another 2. Thank you. Will the mannequins act blind, like bump into, or will they act blind and bump into the walls? I can't describe anything with any enemy behavior. They do move interestingly. I'll leave it at that because I can't share anything. But I've seen many fanned theories about how the mannequins are going to move. They can, from being clumsy to being scary and creepy and aggressive to being not aggressive. I think everybody's got it a little bit right. They're all wrong, but they're all a little bit right. So you'll have a better idea when it comes out, obviously, and you can actually play it. But for now, just kind of take that as a hint. Colton Turbville. Okay. $2. Thank you. Are each nightmare based on 9 circles of hell? No, actually, I did not. I did look at the 9 circles of hell just as a kind of a reference, but nothing was directly based on that, although it may have similarities to some of the layers, just based on what each one kind of addresses. So I won't say that nothing relates to this 9 circles of hell, because more than likely it does. But it wasn't used as a direct source of inspiration. Unicat Ingest threw in another 10. Marshall asks, is Puppet King always a threat? Does he fly and or teleport? Is he the only boss? How big is HH compared to BB? And will we get any screenshots of them all before trailers? Well, anything with behavior is just going to be, you'll see. So is he a threat? Yes, he's a threat, always. Does he fly around and teleport? That's a you'll see. Although I'm sure a lot of people have kind of made their own guesses as to that. Is he the only boss? That's another you'll see. How big is Holiday Horror compared to Barely Buried? Well, I mean, it's a very different type of environment. Barely Buried is, underground chambers and caverns with a little small log cabin as the first zone. So I would say that the mall is bigger than Barely Buried, although it's kind of comparable. I would say just based on the zone 1 is a lot bigger. So the combination of all 3 zones makes it overall bigger than Barely Buried. But it's a very different structure compared to the way that the rooms lay out in Barely Buried. So a little bit different. Autumn Azure threw in... Wait, did I get all of those? Yeah. Oh, one last one. The screenshots. Yeah, I mean, we could do mall screenshots. I've said that I might before, but I haven't guaranteed that, so I can't guarantee it now. It's just like, yes, we could do screenshots. I may change my mind and do Prison Panic. Whatever I think, when we're ready, will get people the most excited is probably the one I'm going to drop first. Autumn Azor threw in 2. Who's the hardest Chapter 5 enemy? That is a matter of opinion. And I will leave it to all of you when you play. For me, well, there's way too many enemies in Chapter 5. So if I name them all, it's a pretty obvious giveaway. So that's definitely a you'll see. Tony BG threw in 5. Again, thank you, Tony. Can you tell us more about Puppet Master's abilities and more info about the voice reviews? Puppet Master's abilities? No, I can't. That's a you'll see. And info about the voice. I assume you're talking about the voice actor or the recording. I can't tell you anything about it. I mean, that's something we'll just do, like a voice reveal when it's time for the Puppet King, so people can hear William Stevens' voice and see how it is. Just get kind of like a preview of it. Unicat Ingest threw in another 5. Will Monsters Immortals get a size change to any of the zones in Enhanced Plus? No. Oh. You said Monsters Immortals. Okay. No, sorry, I don't know why I read that as Dark Deception right away. Monsters Immortals is locked into its level sizes because otherwise it doesn't work. It breaks the gameplay if it's too big. So if we do any Dark Deception levels for the base game, they are intentionally minimized and shrunk and reduced so that they fit the template of what size a Monsters Immortals map should be. Because unless, are you talking about Mascot Mayhem? I'm sorry, I'm reading your acronym. And I just realized it could also be Mascot Mayhem. And that's probably what you meant. And I was talking about Monsters Immortals. So let me correct myself. Just disregard that. Mascot Mayhem is just getting a visual enhancement. It's not getting any size changes. So, well, actually, I'm sorry. Again, it's 4 a.m. here. The thought process is a little slower. There is one new area in Mascot Mayhem. So technically that does increase it a little bit, but it's very minimal. That's in Zone 1. You'll see that when we release Chapter 5, but you'll see it in Super Dark Deception Chapter 2 first. So you'll get to see that very soon, what the changes in Mascot Mayhem and Chapter 4 levels are. Those will transition to Dark Deception because they're part of the story. So yeah, it increases a little bit just for Zone 1. Anonymous fan threw in another 5. Thank you. My last question. How long did it take you to develop the Red Stalker models? Well, I mean, to design them and develop the model and animate them and all of that just took about, let's see, about a month and a half for those characters to implement them fully into the game. So not too long. It's just there's many that's just one. There's many variations of the Red Stalker, as I've mentioned before. That's not a secret. Okay, we got 3 from Unicat and Jess, and 2 of them are part of the adventure, and 1 is a question. I'm going to start with the question, and then I'll hit your 2 adventure notes. Red asks, and she threw in 15 total. Thank you, Unicat. You're awesome. Red asks, why did you use AI generator to tease out Super Dark Deception Chapter 2 levels? Oh, somebody was trying to make an issue about that. Sometimes I forget about the whole AI drama going on Twitter. So there was no thought put into that, or like, ooh, I got to use AI to upgrade these. I was uploading them to Twitter, and when I'm posting it, Twitter asked me if I would like to, or sorry, it wasn't Twitter. It was when I was saving them to my phone, it's baked into the Android operating system. It asks you if you want to keep the current resolution or use a higher resolution. So I just clicked use a higher resolution, unaware that it was using AI to upscale it. And I didn't even notice it at first. I thought it was simply increasing the image size, which I expected it to kind of pixelate it more, which was fine because I didn't want to show like, I always use images that are not quite perfect so that people don't reuse them in other things. And also it adds a little bit of mystery because you can't see everything perfectly. So instead, it did an AI re-render, and I didn't notice that until I kind of clicked on it and looked at it up close. And of course, it kind of smooth shades everything, and it looks really weird. So in some ways, it was kind of funny because it made some freaky Joy Joy Gang or Mascot Mayhem signs, and it pretty much butchered Mama Bear's mask on the wall. It looks like some freaky Leatherface mask. So I thought it was funny, but some people are like really anti-AI and like we're going after it. And I was just like, come on, it's just some screenshots. Let it go. Just enjoy them. You'll see the real thing in pixel form in the game very soon. Don't worry, we're not going to put those in an art book and sell it. They're just on there for everyone to see on Twitter. It's okay. All right, Unicat and Jess, the other 2. Here we go. Something feels wrong. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Claimed to be the best mall ever, but it looked like a haunted gorilla burger zoo. Weird mannequins. I'm out, bruh. Bye. I trusted the monkey and went into the hotel. Then he turned around, revealing he was really aware. What? You're killing me with this, Unicat. You know it's late here. Where's scrub with scraggly plant hair? Oh no, bro. Oh, now I'm dead. Corpse. All right. The adventure continues. Let me see. David Jasper threw in 10. Thank you, David. Will Puppet King appear in all zones of holiday horror? That one you'll see when Chapter 5 comes out. That's definitely a you'll see question. Let me see. Retro or RNG Retro. What kind of mods would you like to see in Super Dark Deception? Well, it depends what kind of options our fans have. So if we have a level editor, I'd love to see people use that level editor to make really creative maps using our existing assets, kind of like Mario Maker. That'd be really cool. If they're just doing something on the side, like their own mod that they want to share with the community because, they've kind of unlocked Unity and can do that. I don't know how to do that in Unity. I know, a lot of people use Unlocker with Unreal. Uh, I saw somebody had something posted for what they use in Unity, but if you can do mods, then of course I always prefer to see something original because that's something we might actually be able to use and put into the game if it was really good. If you do something that's licensed, like somebody recently did a really cool Pac-Man mod, which obviously we could never use because that uses something that doesn't, that's property, it's copyrighted by Bandai Namco, it belongs to them. So we can't do anything licensed. So if anyone wants to do a fan mod and they're hoping like maybe there's a chance that might actually wind up in the game, then I encourage you to do something original. If you just want to do something that's really cool for the community that they can all play and enjoy, and that's kind of the extent of it, then yeah, do whatever you feel like. Obviously within, what's legal. I'm not encouraging anybody to go steal assets from a copyrighted game and then put it into a fan game. That was never my suggestion. But that's just something that's normal. You see it with Friday Night Funkin' and all the FNAF mods. It's just something the community does. A lot of mods for Monsters and Mortals are that way. It's just those can never be part of the game. But yeah, I think stuff like the Pac-Man mod is really cool. Unicat Ninjas through another 2. Will Darkstar sing in her zone themes? Will Darkstar sing? Yeah, Darkstar will sing. You will hear her voice. You've already heard... Oh, I already announced earlier that Adriana was doing the vocals for Darkstar. So yeah, she is singing in a lot of the tracks. So, and if you've heard her with Tammy's Lullaby, Adriana has a very beautiful voice. So they really sound great. That's another reason why I'm not sharing them. I want them to be something everybody experiences for the first time when they play the game. I don't want it to be kind of something they've already heard and listened to prior to the game coming out. Because it just has a lot more impact when you hear it for the first time while playing the game. SharkFan2 threw in £5. Thank you, SharkFan. Are there a higher number of mannequins than Trigger Teddies? Yes. Unicat Ninjas threw in 5. Larry and Fuzz ask, will the waiting screen be made more entertaining to keep players engaged? What waiting screen? I guess you're talking about Monsters and Mortals? That's the only one that has like a lobby, so... Sadly, no. We can only invest so much time and money into Monsters and Mortals. Doing like a UI overhaul would require a lot more support for the game. So, I mean, if we put it out on console and a lot of new people adopt Monsters and Mortals, it sells like another 100,000 copies, then we'll have the resources to go back and make improvements like that. Because a lot of fans say that so casually, like, oh, why don't you just change that? But that's like 40 to 100 hours of work for a lot of that stuff to change it and improve it. It's not something trivial. So by doing that, those resources move away from a different game. That time moves away from a different game. Even if I hire somebody else to come in and do it so it doesn't take me away from a different game, that's still resources. That's monetary resources. So we can only do what the community supports us enough to do. So right now we improve Monsters and Mortals within the scope of the support that the game gets. And that's all we can do. We can't go over that where the game becomes unprofitable and begins losing money. And then we'd have to shut it down. We have to stay within that, the realistic realm of support. We don't want to shutter Monsters and Mortals and make it a dead game, something people can't enjoy anymore. And that's the great reason, well, one of the biggest reasons why we switched to P2P, besides our team is actually knowledgeable to make that, is that with P2P, the game never dies. 10 years from now, you can still play that game with each other. Whereas if it's on a server, it's a brick. It's dead. The instant we take down the servers, that game is no longer playable. But with P2P, you can play it for as long as people still own it. Let's see. Second question, $5. Thank you. Will the barely buried cave size be changed for effect or gameplay? Will there be any new jump scares for Dark Deception Enhanced? No, Barely Buried's cave size is not changed. The map size wasn't changed at all for that. And the enhancements to Barely Buried are all visual. We didn't change anything with the story in Barely Buried. Actually, wait, no, we did add one extra element, but it doesn't change anything with the map. It's mostly for a cutscene. It's like an extra line of dialogue. Last question from Unicat. Larry and Fuzz ask, proposal to add the old DD live system for normal mode, but keep the new one for easy mode. No, anything that's old, we don't bring it back from the dead. It was cut because we don't like it. So it's not coming back. I have people all the time ask me to bring back cut things from early progress shots that they saw of Dark Deception in development or kind of pre-alpha builds. We're kind of moved on with that. So we only will add or revise what exists. We're not going to bring back things that we already cut out. But I know there's definitely a camp that kind of likes everything the way it was before. And that's fine. I'm glad that people appreciated those old assets and those old design choices. But Dark Deception will just keep kind of evolving forward. We're not going to go backwards. Oh, let me see. YouTube. Sorry, I did another jump. All right, that one wasn't as big. Let's see. RNG Retro threw another 10. Why isn't level 13 in Super Dark Deception despite Dark Deception having level 13? Oh, it's not that it's not in there. It's just that it wasn't in that spreadsheet that they ripped because I just didn't put it in. It wasn't really something I was entering into that file yet. It still exists. It's just not in that spreadsheet or that data sheet that they ripped. Unicat Ninjest threw another 10. That was another adventure update. Update, oh no, I broke monkey bruh. We was driving in RV and I was cooking ramen in the coffee pot, failed and stank up the place with smoke. And he was yelling and crashed and yo, and he's bugged. Okay. How do you think of all this stuff so quick? You got some coffee over there too, I bet. Mr. Puzzles threw in £2. Thank you, Mr. Puzzles. After Chapter 5, will there be a second enhanced? No, this is the final enhancement. This is like the game is complete. So if we ever do another enhanced, it'll be like, I don't know, the next generation of consoles, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the road, or at least 3 years, like we do a remaster or a remake or something because the game looks too outdated. That'll be the next enhancement. is when it gets to that point where we need to update the game to keep it modern. But those will all just be visual updates unless we do like a complete remake. I don't want to even think about that until we get done with this game and the Dark Deception sequel. Automazora through another 5. Is it okay if monsters, or my monsters, bear some sort of minuscule similarity to yours? Could I still use them? How does one make a profitable game without infringing? Well, I mean, if you're doing a fan game, it's fine. But if you're making your own game, then that would be copyright infringement, which is not good. So there is always creative similarities. There's always like a coincidence. So why you see a lot of disclaimers on like movies and games where they say all characters and events in this game are, or any resemblance to real people and characters in this game is a pure coincidence. You know, that's just legal jargon to cover their butts in case They accidentally thought of something that really exists, or two people had the same idea at the same time, which happens a lot. I've actually had that happen to me. I thought of something, I thought it was a great design, really original, and then suddenly something pops up on my Twitter wall and somebody did the exact same thing. But I've never shown it to anybody. So it's just like two people had the same idea at the same time. It happens. It sounds weird. As far as making a profitable game without infringing, one, don't copy anything. You can be inspired by something, but don't rip it off. That's the easy one. You have to kind of use your own creativity. I mean, Dark Deception's inspired by Pac-Man, but if we had slapped Doug into a blue glowing maze with blue glowing walls with little yellow power pellets, and it made the waka waka sound when he ran, you know, we'd be saying hi to Bandai Namco's lawyers in court. You've seen with Pal World in Pokemon that they can look pretty similar, and it doesn't necessarily result in a lawsuit. I don't know why Nintendo's not suing Pal World, because some of the designs were pretty blatant ripoffs. Unless it has some benefit for Pokemon, maybe it's driven more people to buy Pokemon because, you know, Pal World just kind of brought it to the top of the forefront of their consciousness again. I don't know if Nintendo's deriving any benefit from that game's success, but that's like a good case study of copyright infringement, as long as there's like enough of a difference. I mean, technically Nintendo could sue them. There's definitely a case there. So they're kind of lucky Nintendo hasn't sued them. But just in general, I mean, just make sure that if you make a game that it's visually and gameplay mechanically different enough that it's not an exact Xerox. Like you're not stealing assets from that game, like putting in sound files, ripping art assets, and then you should be okay. Will we ever get? Oh, sorry. RNG Retro asks, will we ever get a speedrun mode for Dark Deception or SDD? Well, I mean, I said for Super Dark Deception that it would require the game to be a success. I said if the game succeeds and it's doing really well, then we could afford to go in and add some extra stuff like level editor, speedrun. I actually even wanted to make speedrun a competitive thing that could be multiplayer, like local multiplayer, so that you could have two people or however number of people compete against each other to see who could get through the level the fastest with the best rank. And it's kind of a competition that way. I thought that could be pretty fun. And I think for Dark Deception, what we mentioned, because it's really hard to do a level editor in Dark Deception, that's just huge undertaking with not as much benefit. So for them, I mentioned different modes, like third-person mode, body cam mode, things that just kind of change up the visuals of Dark Deception and how you play it. Speedrun mode is another one we could do, but then it would be single player. I guess it could be multiplayer, local multiplayer if it was turn-based. But that wouldn't be like the first thing that we do. A lot of people were really excited about the third player mode, so we could probably implement something like that faster and easier and cheaper than a speedrun mode. That's just being honest about that. So yeah, speedrun mode we definitely could do once Dark Deception's done and Chapter 5 is out. Then we could go in and add that in as a kind of free update. Maybe we could time it to like a DLC release or something so that it feels like an extra thing that they get for free. Grandom Rye threw in 5. A trigger teddy paints itself black and white, locks a bunch of high schoolers in an academy, and tries to get them to kill each other. How does it go? You've just described Danganronpa. I love that game, yeah. That could work. Actually, at one point, we were actually trying to get Danganronpa into Monsters and Mortals, but that is not an easy license to get, so it didn't quite work out, but that would have been really cool. You Need Cat Ninja threw in another 5. It says, on Mars, I was going to get a chef promo today, but I turned into sponged monkey, eyed Bob, and cooked a burger in my PC fan. I'm now a tray octopus bro. Let's see. Crash through in 5. I asked this long ago and opinions may have changed, so do what? Sentence kind of cut off there. So do you happen to have a new favorite Monsters and Mortals mod? I haven't seen. I mean, I usually find out about the Monsters and Mortals mods through Twitter, with fans sharing it within the community. So I don't really go onto Game Jolt to see. I guess that's where a lot of these are posted. And I'm not really active on Game Jolt, so I haven't really seen any Monsters and Mortals mods on Twitter this year being shared or within the Discord server. So I'm not familiar if there's any new ones. So I don't really have like a new favorite. But if anything pops up, I'd like to take a look at it. Mostly what I've seen is just kind of like skin updates. Like some of the modders have made basically like their OC skins for Monsters and Mortals, which I'm not that familiar with because it's just their kind of their original characters. So I haven't really seen anything as far as like a map mod or anything like that. RNG Retro through another 10. Will DD or Super Dark Deception get workshop support for custom maps? Not workshop support, but we did talk about the built-in level editors. So that is one option that we're hoping we can get to. Super Dark Deception's already selling really well on Steam. It's off to a great start the first week. So we're hoping once we get it out onto consoles and to mobile, that gets it up to the number that we need to do something like that. Because that would be a huge undertaking that we would need to probably build an extra team to complete so that it didn't take us away from our other, primary work on Chapter 5. Lofabri threw in 2. Again, thank you. Will Puppet King use his head to attack or kill us? I can't say. It's definitely feasible. I mean, he's got a big pointy head that's a sharp spike, so you'd think he would. But the question is, will he? So in Chapter 5, we'll see if he does that. I can't promise anything. I don't want to disappoint anybody that's hoping he's going to run around impaling Doug with his head. It's possible. I just can't promise it. Adam Azura threw another 2. How long did it take to start making a Dark Deception game? Well, I mean, if anyone's followed us since the beginning, Dark Deception has existed for 10 years. The actual game that you play now has been in development since 2018. So it's coming up on 6 years total, although most of that's for the last 2 chapters. So yeah, it's a huge undertaking, and it does tend to scale as you go on. So unless you really minimize your design for what you're trying to make down to something really, really simple, like an arcade experience, it's going to get big. I wouldn't suggest it as like a first, like knowing what I know now, I wouldn't suggest it as a first game right out of the gate, unless you're going to keep it to, keep it almost to the simplicity of the original Pac-Man, if you're going to do something like that, just to test out your concept. See, Croco64 threw in 5 pounds. Thank you. Is there a way to avoid mannequins? Lots of enemies that are super fast seem quite unfair, and I'd like to hear the chase theme for more than 2 seconds. Let's see. Well, there's always a balancing, because a lot of people, if anything becomes too challenging, they see it as unfair. But it really comes down to skill level. There's just no dancing around that. If you're really good, if you have the responses and the skill level, it won't seem unfair. It'll seem challenging, certainly, but it's definitely something that you can manage and still succeed and get the S rank. But just like everything, there's varying skill levels per player. That's why we've kind of created the different difficulty modes so people can choose the level of challenge that they're comfortable with. So we can't we will always be a mode where I don't compromise. I don't want to compromise the design of Dark Deception and the challenge to make it kind of a one size fits all design. That's just too hard to do, to find a design balance that makes everyone happy. And it's not too hard, it's impossible. No matter what I make, there's going to be somebody who thinks it's too easy or too hard. It's always those two camps. So if I lower the challenge, the people who love challenge get angry and say it's too easy, and therefore it's boring. And if I make it too challenging, or I increase the challenge, then the camp that doesn't like challenge says it's unfair and it's buggy. They usually attribute challenge, even if it's not bugged, there's always bugs, and there absolutely are bugs. But some people see challenge as a bug. So I've had people tell me in Super Dark Deception, the two monkeys cornering them is a bug. I'm like, no, that's intelligent AI. They're designed to corner you. They see that as unfair. But to get cornered, you have to go slow. You have to be indecisive. You have to hesitate. That leads to you getting cornered. You have to go up instead of going down. You know what I mean? Choose it. It requires bad decision making to put yourself into that situation that the monkeys have a chance to cut you off. Because Dark Deception requires you to always keep moving in order to succeed. If you slow down, you immediately put yourself in the position to be cornered or killed, or especially if you backtrack. Backtracking is usually one of the worst things you can do, but a lot of people don't know that, and they kind of do that, and they can get frustrated easily. So there's lots of ways to avoid the mannequins. And, a lot of people also respond better to stress than other people do. They may make faster decisions, panic less, because they're not as scared. When you're scared, it can impact your decision making. Some people are more scared than others. I think that's why it's so interesting, like hearing which levels people like the most and which levels people find scare them the most. Some levels don't scare people at all, and other people tell me it's too scary. So it affects each person differently. So there's no like perfect way to do this, to design Dark Deception. That's why we have the different modes and different balances. And as far as avoiding the mannequins, yeah, you have a full, at that point, Holiday Horror, you won't have the new powers yet, but you have all of the existing powers at your disposal to avoid them. And I won't tell you how you can avoid them, because that would clue you in on how they attack and behave. But yes, it's very possible to avoid them altogether. But that takes a great deal of skill. Most people are not going to be able to avoid them drawing their attention, I mean. So you're just going to have to run a lot and run really fast and teleport like crazy. So I wish you all luck in the near future. We'll see. Unicat Ingest through another 5. Beerus is a hypocrite. She telling me to get all the shards, but she's sitting there doing nothing with her hair that looks like an old sack of banana peels. That actually is an accurate description. It does have kind of a banana peel curvature to it for all the strands. Well, Beerus, she's not, she's a very intelligent lady. She has a reason for everything she does, including sitting there doing nothing. Shark Fan 2 threw in £5. Thank you, Shark Fan. Since we're getting new powers for Chapter 5, will the skill level cap be increased from 15 to something higher so we can upgrade them? No, the skill cap is set. You will have to choose wisely where you spend your points. You can't upgrade everything to the max. That's just part of the design. Unicat Ingest throws in another 2. DD West asks, is Monster Party a boss theme? No, it's not. Rennie Nico threw in £5. Thank you, Rennie Nico. Are you opposed to adding a feature that lets you see all requirements to get an S rank for Super Dark Deception and Dark Deception? No. I mean, if you've played Super Dark Deception and you've been to the archive room, if you go to the giant ring altar and click on it, it brings up a stats window that lets you see each level, all the assets that are required for S rank, and what you've actually collected. So you can see all the E-note, well, the E-note for each level, whether you have it or not. You can see all the secret folders for each level, whether you have them or not, and what your current highest rank is for that level. Dark Deception will also have an archive room, and that will be in there as well. It'll just look a little bit different than it does in Super Dark Deception. So the archive room will actually be in both games. It's just the archive room in Dark Deception looks different than the Super Dark Deception one. Let's see. Puppet King, 69. Threw in $2. What are the sprite size for Puppet King and Darkstar? That's a good question. Well, they are just normal characters. They're not boss sprites. So my guess is about between 40 to 70 pixels. Somewhere in that range. Same as Doug, just a bit taller, because, you know, Doug's kind of a short guy. So he's not quite as tall as them. Tony BG threw in 5. Is it true that Fear Fortress is 1/3 of the game? That is correct. 2. Is the OST The Joy of Despair from Fear Fortress or from Wicked Ways? That one I can't say, because then that kind of tells you where part of the story is, since you all know it's a boss fight. Vader Gamer threw in 2. Will there be cheat codes for Super Dark Deception? Yeah, there actually will be cheat codes for Super Dark Deception that you can unlock in the archive room. So you'll get them for beating the game on certain modes. That will unlock those cheat codes. So it's kind of like a New Game Plus reward. Let's see, sorry, a little bit of a jump. Oh, okay. Unicat Ingest threw in another 5, and she's got another thing. Let me see. At work, I do the Joy Joy dance in front of guests when I get them to join one of the restaurant's memberships. You do the whole dance or just part of it? I would love to see you at work, wherever that is, doing the entire Joy Joy gang in front of confused guests. Sharkfan2 threw in £5. Will all zones and all levels have their own individual panic and roaming tracks instead of some being shared across multiple zones? I think it's a mix. I wouldn't say that they all have their own unique tracks, but I think the majority of them do. Krakow64 threw in £5. If you're interested in unique DD fan games, please check out Dark Disillusion. It is a masterpiece and is worth checking out with level 3 coming soon. I've heard of that one, and I've seen some screenshots of it previously, but it was still a work in progress, so I'm not sure what the current status of that fan game is. I probably can check up on it pretty soon if I can find a link. But I mean, I think it was on Game Jolt, so I can just search it there to see what it looks like now, if they have an updated trailer or screenshots for it. Unicat Ninjas threw another 2. DD West asks, will there be an archive room in Dark Deception? Yeah, there will be. I just answered that, but maybe you just jumped in. So yes, there will be archive room in the 3D version of Dark Deception as well. It's just, it's going to be, the design is different. It doesn't also, it doesn't have the same features that Super Dark Deception has. Like, Dark Deception's art gallery is very different from Super Dark Deception's sprite gallery. So there will be a lot of differences between the two, but overall, they both have an archive room. Let's see. Hi Vince, or sorry, Dark Deception Dill threw in 5. Hi Vince, hope today is good. Have you seen Dark Deception mods yet? Oh yeah, I've seen a lot of Dark Deception mods over the last few years, but I haven't seen any for this year, for 2024. I think somebody was asking me that. That's what I was kind of saying. Like the previous years, especially for the holiday review, I saw a lot of really cool fan games for 2023, but I haven't seen any for 2024 yet. But I'll admit that I am not always looking, and that I usually only see them when they pop up on Twitter, or one of my mods brings it to me from the Discord server. So if you can't reach me, you can always throw it to one of the mods in the Glowstick Entertainment Discord server, and they can pass it along to me. Let's see, what do we got here? Santome, okay. Santome threw in €2. Why was telepathy changed for chapter 4? Oh, I've gotten that one a lot because they like the old effect better. I won't go too much into that because I've already answered that one at least 5 times from previous episodes. It's just it was a performance issue. And no, it's not changing. It's not going back to the old one. The new one is here to stay and will remain even in chapter 5. But yeah, it was purely performance. That is the optimizing. Pyro Shark, $5. Thank you, Pyro Shark. Asking for a friend, but will regional pricing for Super Dark Deception happen anytime soon? Basically, the prices in Russia is double the price. More than the base DD. I think a lot of people are kind of spreading that narrative on Twitter. They're saying it's twice the price of Dark Deception. What they don't say is Dark Deception is on sale right now, 50% off. Dark Deception is normally $20. Super Dark Deception is $17.99. It is not twice the price of Dark Deception. If they were both 50% on sale right now, or 50% off at the same time, which they will be in the future eventually, it will still be cheaper than Dark Deception. As far as the regional pricing, Valve handles that. So they have by default everything set to a specific default regional price for every country. We usually stick with that because it's the cheapest option for all countries. The only reason for us to change that is if we don't want the price to change and we want everybody to pay a flat rate the same for every single country, to basically discourage key resellers, because a lot of times they will go to a cheap region. Like they might go to, I don't know, what's the one country I see they all go to? They'll go to like one of the South American countries where it's really cheap because of the local price. And then they will buy they'll buy a ton of copies in that area, and then they'll go sell it at like the US price somewhere else online. They'll sell those keys. So some companies, some developers will intentionally price everything exactly the same just to put an end to that. We don't do that. I mean, if we lose revenue to that, we'll deal with that in court if it's too big of an issue from a particular offender. But otherwise, we let Valve adjust all the prices per country as they do for every single game. So I don't know what the pricing is in Russia, if it's equal to the US price or cheaper. I don't really see that per region or per country. But Dark Deception is absolutely more expensive than Super Dark Deception. It just happens to be on sale right now. So if you want to get it 50% off, now's the time. In fact, I think the sale's coming to an end either today or tomorrow. It's only got a day or so left, or it may be over already. Until that'll be the last time it's on sale until I think close to Halloween, like around September, October, will be probably the next sale. So yeah, if you haven't got Dark Deception yet and you want to get it cheap or buy it for somebody cheap, now's a good time to do it. Super Dark Deception's a new game, so it can only go on sale for up to 15% off. That's kind of Valve's suggested launch discount. Most do 10%. That's what we did. So it will have bigger sales in the future, but you have to wait for them because there's like a cooldown period. We're not allowed to put it on sale for about 8 weeks. So I think in about 8 weeks, we'll finally be able to do kind of like the first Super Dark Deception sale that might be it will be higher than 10%, but you know, it's a new game, so we're not going to be cutting it 50% right off the bat. It's going to be like 20% or something like that. It's not going to be like a huge discount. Let me see. Automazora threw in 5. If Level Maker does happen, can it be used to make your own DD game? Or will it be strictly Dark Deception? Oh, I mean, that's going to be baked into Super Dark Deception. It's going to be a mode inside the game. It's not going to be a standalone thing. So, yeah, it won't be something that you can kind of make into a standalone game. I mean, if you want to make your own fan game or mod, you can do it that way. But otherwise, it'll be something that you make inside the game and share online, probably through peer-to-peer with other fans or your friends. That's the idea anyway. Obviously, we'll look at kind of the best case or best practice scenarios from existing games and see who did it best. And then we'll try to kind of mirror that setup because we want to do it in a way that's smart and makes it easy to share those levels with everybody. So we have to look at who had the best kind of implementation of that. I know there are some games besides Mario Maker that did something very similar. So we'll kind of look at what other people have done and see what we can do and what our approach will be. But first we have to sell Super Dark Deception more, and we need to fix up the existing issues. So that's kind of like in the back of our minds right now. We'll eventually get to that once everything else is doing well. Rini Nico threw in another £5. Thank you, Rini. Dark Deception Q&A episode, 49 duration, 24 hours. Also, if you realize, Vince, this is the longest Q&A to date, you said this one will be short. Geez. Yeah, I did realize that, but I figured, what the hell? I'll just keep going with it. I wanted it to be an hour and a half, but I think you guys always keep it going at least 3 hours. So we are at 3 hours and 16 minutes. Yeah, this is the longest one. So I think I'm going to cut the member questions because it's pretty much a ton of questions, this Q&A. But, you know, it's been, 3-4 months since I did the last one. So I feel like I kind of owe it to go through all of these. So it's not that big a deal. That's why I'm kind of like, okay, I'll just do it. But I'm still going to talk about the merch at the end real quick, but I'm going to kind of speed run that. I'm going to abbreviate it, whereas before I was going to talk about it for a few minutes. I'm just going to kind of go through it fast after this. BGN threw in another 5. Do Puppet King and the Red Ones have a Frenzy Nightmare model? And what is the most intense track from HH Holiday Horror in your opinion? Yeah, all enemies have a Nightmare mode. Just use that term from now on. Throw out the Frenzy. That's like an old term we're not using anymore. It's just Nightmare. So they all have a Nightmare mode, every single enemy in every level. Puppet King and the Red Stalkers are no different. And as far as the most intense track, I still like Mortal Puppets. That's my favorite at the moment, or Fear Outlet. I wouldn't say it's the most intense. I just like the beat in Fear Outlet. That one's really cool to me. So those are my two favorite. But I know everybody has different takes on that. Let's see, the Bowman threw in 20. Thank you. Hi, Vince. Will Super Dark Deception get new crossovers or no? Yeah, so I mentioned it earlier, but we do have crossovers coming for Super Dark Deception in the form of DLCs that will probably drop sometime between Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. At the latest, it would be the same time as Chapter 2. Hopefully, we can get it before, but we'll see. But we have at the moment, we have 2. One that's kind of already in the works and confirmed, another one that's kind of almost confirmed. So I can only promise one of those because, you know, the other one could suddenly fall through, but who knows? But yeah, they are coming. Mr. Saturn threw in 20. Thank you, Mr. Saturn. No question, just got home from work and wanted to donate. Thanks, Vince. Well, thank you, Mr. Saturn. I appreciate the donation. And glad you get home safe. Enjoy the rest of your day. Let's see. At the speed beyond light threw in 5. Hi, Vince. Will you fix the shard streak bug in Dark Deception? After you die with a large streak, if you get a new streak of 50, it will replace the higher streak. I'm trying to remember if that bug was reported. That sounds like such an old bug. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure that's been fixed. We don't have any current shard streak issues. But you know how games are. As soon as you export it and try to put it out to the public, that's when everything breaks. So we'll see if it pops up in our testing, but as far as I know, that's been fixed. I haven't seen anything shard streak related in a long time. Like, probably since after chapter 4, so it's been a couple years since I saw anything like that. I assume it's fixed. Let's see, Diamond threw in £5. Thank you, Diamond. Hey, I love Dark Deception, but I play on Xbox. I was wondering whether it will drop on console with Chapter 5 or come early with all current chapters. No rush, though. Yeah, so Dark Deception will come to Xbox, both Xbox One and Xbox Series SX. So the Xbox One build actually looks decent. Like, we haven't had to optimize it and sacrifice too much. So it still needs a lot of work with the lighting, though. So if I were you and you have both consoles, definitely buy, of course, buy the Xbox Series X version. Unicat Ninjas threw in 5. Wait, she got 2 in a row. Okay. She got 10. First one, The Adventure. Oh no, wait. Sorry, I read that wrong. Oh, do not friend. Just texted me that he wanted to go to the farm and let cows loose to block the freeway and get a haircut and turn phonies and Ferb and cow mall. These are deteriorating rapidly. What time is it where you are? Let's see, I don't do the entire Joy Joy dance, just the movements one time. Guess like it. Nice stream, bro. Until next time. Oh, you should definitely post yourself doing that at work. That's pretty cool to see anything Dark Deception related happening in the wild. I think the fans will like to see that too. So the next time you're entertaining your guests, just do like a little YouTube short of it and put it online. Throw it on Twitter. Mr. Saturn threw in another 5. One stupid question. You mentioned before, Danganronpa. Out of curiosity, did Monokuma inspire the Trigger Teddies? Actually, I remember, yes, Monokuma. I'm trying to remember. I did use him as inspiration. I'm not necessarily sure it was the Trigger Teddies. Or if it was more for Mama Bear. I think his dumpiness and body shape kind of helped me with inspiration for Mama Bear's design. Not so much the Trigger Teddies themselves. But yeah, I'm a big Danganronpa fan. I played and own all the games. So definitely drew a little bit of inspiration from that. See, Croco64 threw in £5. Thank you again. Dark Disillusion is an amazing state is in an amazing state and can be compared to base DD in terms of quality. Definitely worth checking out if you can. You'll love it. Well, in that case, I'll definitely have to check it out if it's doing well. I tend to only want to look at fan games once they're kind of like our game. People want it to be complete. I want to enjoy those fan games in their entirety. So I will usually kind of give them the time they need to complete it before I jump in and make any kind of judgment about how good it is or whether I like it or not. Just because I know how bumpy a ride game development can be, especially indie game development. So it's kind of like somebody jumping in and looking at your illustration or your charcoal drawing as you're about, 1/3 of the way through it, and you're trying to convince them that it's going to be amazing by the time it's done. But they kind of like make their mind up right then and there with the 1/3 sketch. And they're like, this doesn't look that good. I could do that. So I give them time to make it as amazing as they can make it before I come and take a look at it. And hopefully some fans have played it and really like it. See, Justin threw in 5 Canadian. Thank you, Justin. With the missing OSTs like Share Your Pain, Chef Frenzy, Collection Call, etc., will they be released on Spotify as alongside the Chapter 5 ones? Do we have missing OSTs? Maybe, because I think actually a lot of those were done after the OSTs were already released. So I'd have to look. Maybe we can just update the albums with those missing tracks. If we can't, for some reason, if they won't allow us to go back, because these are all done through publishers like CD Baby and what's the other one we use? I always forget their name. But anyway, it's they're kind of like they're brand management for our music label and our music OSTs. So if they don't let us to change that, we'd have to toss it into the chapter 5 track or just leave them out. Putting them into the chapter 5 track feels kind of out of place since they're not related to that. But we could also just leave it out and just let people listen to it on YouTube. I guess it doesn't need to have everything. We'll see. Let's see. Ethereum. Wait, what's this? Oh, Ethereum threw in 17. What's your favorite Danganronpa character? Of course, Monokuma. It's hands down. No contest. Although I like the Japanese voice a lot better than the English voice for that character. Let's see. Tony BG threw in 5. Are the Spider Clowns and clips of CC Boss or Crazy Carnival's boss the frenzy form of Clown Gremlins? No, they are their own separate enemy type. So those will be a new enemy added to Crazy Carnival. That is kind of like an enhancement for Chapter 5 as we added in the Spider Clowns because we thought they're too cool not to have as part of the level, and we wanted to give them a small role inside of the zones so that players outside of Monsters and Mortals can encounter them in Dark Deception. Mamma Mia Pizzeria threw in 2. Are any of the old plushies coming back? I mean, anything made by Makeship is kind of like a final limited edition one-time run plushie. If it's something that sold a lot of units like the Dread Ducky or the Murder Monkey, then Makeship is open to bringing back bestsellers. Because if they sold really well once, they might sell really well again. So they're a little bit open-minded about bringing back best-selling old plushies. So if it to happen, it would likely just be those 2. But we are actually going to start manufacturing our own plushies at some point. That's not Makeship, it's on our own website. So we'll have those as like an alternative option for people who miss out on Makeship and still want to get Dark Deception plushies. That's something I'll talk more about in the merch discussion in a minute. All right, last one, because you guys have got me at 3.5 hours. Is there going to be an option to change? Or sorry, this is from Press Start, and they threw in 22 pounds. That is awesome. Thank you very much. Is there going to be an option to change how you toggle your powers? For example, with the scroll wheel, pressing 1 and 2 while also trying to run away and you're better than what the default one does. So you'll have that flexibility in Chapter 5 when it updates, because we've kind of updated our whole options menu. All right, that's it for Super Chat. Thank you guys very much for questions that kept things going for 3 hours. We definitely got a lot of questions in this time, so that's great that you guys have so many questions to ask. And it was actually a lot more variety than I was expecting. I was expecting them all to be Chapter 5, but there was actually a lot of Super Dark Deception and Monsters and Mortals mixed in. So thank you all for kind of addressing all the games to kind of keep things more interesting. And as far as the last thing I want to say on this stream for episode 27 is the merchandise. So if some of you followed me, if you follow me on Twitter, you've probably seen my post talking about the upcoming merchandise that's going to be this month. Some of them are possibly going to be next month. So we've talked about the big one is the launch of the Dark Deception book series, which is the Malik Archives. And the first book is called House of Mischief. So this is a 174-page book, has 2 novellas in it written by Kelly Parra, who wrote a lot of the stories for Fazbear Frights, for that successful New York Times best-selling series. She's a really great author, and I co-wrote the book with her. We both wrote that book. The majority of it's done by her. It's her story, but it's my characters, the Dark Deception world, and a lot of the intros are written by me and writing various points within the story. So it's something we both co-wrote. We have another book on the way that's already being written currently, book number 2, but this is the first one, and it will be on sale before the end of July. We do have a manufacturing window to print because we can only order the number that sell. So we have to sell them first to see what the order number is, and then we will put them into manufacturing, and they will probably ship about a month after we take the order because they take about 2 to 3 weeks to manufacture. So that's the big one, is that. We also have a really cool line, as you've seen on Twitter and on our website, on the store, and the Glowstick Entertainment page, is we're making these crystal acrylic charms made by GJ characters in Tokyo, Japan. So they are a Tokyo, Japan based merchandise manufacturer for pop culture and popular brands. So they do a lot of stuff for anime. They do a lot of stuff for popular Japanese video games. And their products are sold in Animate and Akihabara and many different stores all throughout Japan. So the idea is we're going to sell these online, and they're also going to be sold in Japan, if any of you live in Japan. I can't tell you which stores they're going to be sold in yet, as we haven't really nailed that down and signed those agreements, but they will eventually be sold in physical stores around Tokyo and maybe some other cities in Japan, if anyone lives there. But for everyone else, just go to our online store and you can buy it there. We're going to start primarily selling Dark Deception merchandise exclusively through the Glowstick Entertainment website store. And that way, the reason for doing that is so that we can control the quality of the merchandise and really make cool stuff. Like, we don't want to sell cheap junk that just has a high profit margin like I see a lot of these games doing. Like, we don't want to sell cheap stickers and cheap pins. If we do anything, we want it to be the highest quality possible. We're not really doing merchandise to maximize our profit margin by making cheap crap that costs us very little, and then we sell it to you at inflated, overpriced prices. So, one, to keep the prices of our merchandise reasonable, and two, to make sure the quality is the highest possible, because high quality really doesn't cost these companies much to make. It doesn't cost that much. No matter what option and materials they choose, it's always pretty cheap. And then they will mark it up like 5 to 10 to 100 times the price and pass that off on consumers. So that's a little bit of an ethics issue for us. We like to be profitable. We don't need to be that profitable. So having the merchandise through our store allows us to control all of that. And we can keep the prices set and not worry about, prices keep going up, making it unobtainable for our fans. Especially with, the inflation in the world right now. So we're very conscious of that, and we want to do the best quality products possible. So JG Characters is a great partner for us. They make really awesome stuff. I've seen their stuff in person. It is not cheap junk. It's beautiful. And we're really happy that they're going to make these crystal charms for us and other acrylic products. And actually, the CEO of the company, her name is Ryoko. And she's actually a really big Dark Deception fan. That's why she approached us. So she's a huge Dark Deception fan. She really cares about these products. And she's putting her best effort into it as a result, because she wants to make, the best DD products on the market. So I have a lot of confidence in her. And those are going to be on sale this month too, possibly next week. So I'm still working out the launch date, but it's very likely that it will go live next week and you will be able to start buying those. And then the last thing, which I can actually show you, is an acrylic we're making here in Taiwan, which is different. It's not a charm. It's a desk display set. So this is it. This is what I've shown on Twitter. And it's also made of acrylic. And this is a higher quality acrylic. It's thick, doesn't peel. It's not something that's on top that's going to get kind of flake off over time with humidity and warm temperatures. And it's made here in Taiwan, so it's locally made, which is great. I can check on the factory and make sure they're doing things right. So we're going to make 3 of these. This is the Doug and Beer set. I don't know if you all can see kind of like the design and pattern. There's also going to be 2 other sets from Super Dark Deception. These are Super Dark Deception merchandise. It will have the chef monkey and the regular monkey on that. So these will be also on sale at the same time this month, probably next week. And we'll be basically taking the orders for that. And if the order count is high enough, we'll put them into production. And they will probably also ship within, I think everything will ship within a month. Worst case scenario, 2 months. It's not going to be like a 3-month wait. So they won't take long to go out. So hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing that. I have that one actually made. The crystal charms I don't have made yet. And they're in Tokyo. And then there's one more merchandise. Oh yeah, there's 2 others that we're going to sell as well. One other one from JG Characters is the sticker sheets that I showed online. So we have 2 sticker sheets, one for Super Dark Deception and one for Dark Deception. Those will be sold, as well as some enamel pins. So we have some enamel pins in production that are going to be packaged as a set that I haven't shown yet. But in August, I'll be showing those, and they will be on sale in August, as well as the existing pin on the site of the Murder Monkey that I haven't sold yet will finally be on sale with those. So next month, we're going to have stickers, we're going to have enamel pins, and the full acrylic set, and the book. So we'll finally have like a full store full of cool stuff. And then we're just going to keep adding to that every so often. Every month to 3 months, we'll put something new. It may be something that stays, or it may be something that's limited time, one time only, and then it's gone type merchandise. So we'll be very clear about that as we announce them and put them on the store. So that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging with me for this episode 27 live stream. I'm surprised I'm still awake and functional. It's 5 a.m. I'm on a weird sleep schedule right now, so this is still workable. And wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is, I hope you guys have a great day. Go play some Dark Deception or any other games that you enjoy. Danganronpa, it doesn't matter. Just have fun today. Take it easy. Don't stress. See you all next time.